It's time for MacBreak Weekly. Renee Ritchie is in Cupertino. So, hey, great news. Mikah Sargent is here with us, along with Andy Ihnatko and Alex Lindsay. And, of course, what are we going to talk about? WWDC. How good is the M2? Which laptop should you get? What about the new macOS Ventura, iOS 16? And, in my opinion, maybe the biggest announcement of all, a new look for iPadOS. It's all coming up next on MacBreak Weekly.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is TWiT.
This is MacBreak Weekly, episode 821 for Tuesday, June 7th, 2022. Blowin Cheddah. This episode of MacBreak Weekly is brought to you by ZipRecruiter. Summer's packed with things to do, and you can enjoy them all because if you need to hire, ZipRecruiter can help. ZipRecruiter's technology finds great candidates, and you can invite them to apply. Try it free at ziprecruiter.com/MacBreak. And by Blue Land. Stop wasting water and throwing out more plastic. Get Blue Land's revolutionary refill cleaning system instead. Right now, you can get 20% off your first order when you go to blueland.com/MacBreak. And by CashFly. Deliver your video on the network with the best throughput and global reach, making your content infinitely scalable. Go live in hours, not days. Learn more at cashfly.com. It's time for MacBreak Weekly, and I think we have a little something to talk about today. Renee Ritchie is still in Cupertino, but we do have a message from him, which we will pass along in just a second. Filling in for Renee, the host of iOS Today, my co-host yesterday during the event, wearing a lovely cardigan. It's Mikah Sargent.
Thank you.
That's very nice. Very nice.
Thank you.
Of course, good to have you in Tech News Weekly. Andy Ihnatko is here, WGBH in Boston. And Mr. Alex Lindsay, who probably has been spending the last 24 hours talking about
it sure feels like it.
How's your voice?
Yeah.
Are you sick of it yet?
Yeah. I don't know. I'm excited. I get different visions of it. Every conversation is slightly different.
Right.
So I've had this is my fourth one.
Yeah.
So.
Everybody who looks at it has another angle.
Yeah.
It was a good event. A lot of protein there.
Actually, let's start with that. You feel like it was a good event, Andy?
Yeah, especially because it's a developer conference, but obviously the first keynote is always intended towards the press and towards consumers. And boy, did they give particularly consumers a lot to think about. Mostly thinking that if you bought new hardware in the past year or two, oh boy, we're going to pay things off to you, not with just, whereas last year with the new CPUs, a lot of it was, hey, look at these charts about power consumption, look at these charts about speed compared to Intel or compared to other things that we're doing. Now we're basically saying, look at the new features that we're going to be able to give you that are more than, hey, look, you can do search and replace within an email. It's like, no, here's something you can do with your iPad that you were never able to do before. And yes, we're cutting off people who aren't using M1 iPads, but this is us telling you that this is why this is the future. This is why you should probably start replacing your old Macs with new Macs. Maybe this is also why you should start replacing your old Windows machines with new Macs and new iPads, because clearly we have such a detailed roadmap for where we're going with everything and how everything's going to work together. So yeah, this is a very, very I'm really excited about what I'll be able to do with my hardware at the end of the year.
Alex, what was the consensus in the office hours? Was this a good WWDC?
Oh, yeah. I think a lot of people were pretty excited about it. I think that, it didn't have the whiz bang. I think it just had lots of good little features that, again, as Andy's talking, you see everything starting to pull together.
Yeah.
So all of these different pieces of hardware, I think that people really wanted a Mac Mini. So there was a strong, desire for a Mac Mini that would be on the M2 as opposed to the laptops. I think that there was a surprise that there was very little discussed around AR or VR. It just
very little, like zero.
Skipped.
That was a big surprise.
It was like spatial audio was like a sentence. And then we've done some spatial audio, and then they moved on. And so it was. So it definitely did not get much time. So a lot of us that are paying attention to that paid attention to that. That nothing happened there. But I think that, and nothing with Apple TV. No, the OS is pretty much the same as it was. It still feels like there's a lot of pent up hardware there that that's there. That there's pent up capabilities in the hardware that haven't been unleashed, and so we're kind of curious as to when that might happen. And then, as far as the actual production, we thought it was pretty good.
Pretty good. Wait a minute. Craig Federighi running.
That was the best part.
Air Force One.
Talk about that. That was the best.
The Bionic Man.
Best part in the whole of the entire thing was him running. Like the Running Man thing with Craig, it was unbelievably hilarious. I mean, it was just so well done because it was so cheesy. I mean, they were just blowing cheddar all over the walls, and
it's they kind of brought back because I remember the last event, they didn't really have a lot of those transitions.
No, it was so much fun. Yeah, I was really glad they brought the transitions back because they were a lot of fun. Most of them were a little weird. Like it was like, oh, they didn't quite work that one out, but some of his were really, really
like good. The elevator from
the elevator was pretty good.
The top to the bottom of the stage and so forth.
That looked like a Get Smart elevator,
That's what I said, Get Smart. At first I was saying Mission Impossible, James Bond, but no, it was Get Smart.
Get Smart. Yeah, exactly. And so it was, I think I was glad that they didn't try to do it back on stage. I think I think that we would find a stage keynote to be super slow now compared to what we're used to as far as how fast they transition from one thing to the next, and the fact that the performances are way better because they get to do them over and over again. Yeah. And so I think
they did show it to a live audience. So the live audience was outside on the Apple campus. They had a big screen set up. We saw a lot of tweets and pictures from
big LED wall,
from people, and they had it was very much like a warm-up act. So Tim came on and said hi and live in person, and Craig came on and waved, and then they said, okay, now let's it's 10 o'clock, let's do the show. And then everybody just sat watching that. And I presume they were, in fact, I'm pretty sure there were demonstration labs and hands-on after.
Which I thought was great.
They had a meet the developers conversation afterwards. So right after the event was over, developers from Apple who work on Swift UI, who work on the different operating systems, were standing out in the crowd at these different tables, and then people could walk up to them right after the event was over and have conversations with them. And the Swift UI table, I was told, was incredibly packed.
Yeah, interesting. Well, that's developers. What did you think, Mikah? Was it all that, or just
for me? No.
No.
So I'll say that there are quite a few little features and changes that I am absolutely excited about. I'm looking forward to digging into even more. But the things about which I was the most excited or hopeful for were not announced. And of course, I'm an odd person out, so I realize that, but I am very much into the smart home and automation and things like that. And there was no mention of some of the location stuff that I wanted to check out. However, one thing that I think we all need to do as journalists, if we do have developer accounts, is go to Apple's website and look at the sessions that are coming out, because I kind of had to shut my mouth and call me Skippy because there were several different videos that are coming out that are covering the things that I wanted to have covered. They just wasn't room on stage.
Yeah, exactly. It was an hour and 48 minutes. It was jam-packed, and they didn't get to nearly everything. Here is Craig Federighi's Running Man transition. I'll turn on the sound so you can hear it.
iPadOS.
Slow motion, hair waving in the breeze. Somebody said it's a Head and Shoulders commercial.
Oh, so great.
He's looking good. They're doubling down on Craig as their guy, aren't they? Yeah.
He's the amuse-bouche between meals, between like meaty like challenging courses of the meal. Where
he got his dad jokes in about their crack naming team, and after their hard work on the M1 and M2, they came up with Ventura. We'll talk about that in a little bit as the next Mac OS.
I like the joke about the Apple car charging. Wasn't that like a slide that was like in the background?
Oh, I missed that. Okay, yeah, we got to look at some Easter eggs. Yeah. Renee Ritchie was there, and he posted in our Discord images of the Pokemon gyms on the Apple campus. There's one in the Steve Jobs Theater. There is a what do they call that? Battle Dome. That's the gym. In the Apple Park Visitors Center. Battle Dome. And then the AR Park model has another Pokestop. So there's two Pokestops in a gym, apparently, inside the ring.
There's a whole bunch of things announced, and what we get are Pokemon location.
Yeah, thanks, Renee.
No. That's perfect. It's like there's the problem with like the people who like go to these things like in person is that you often come away with just the stuff that everybody got just by watching the video and or just by sending off a few emails. I absolutely admire Renee for saying, look, one of the few things that I can do that I can only learn if I'm actually here boots on ground is what are the Pokemon spots, and also is Apple allowing stuff like that to happen on their campus? So yes, I want them to do everything they can possibly do. If they can have a metal detector, if they can have one of those ghost detectors to look for EMF fields, I hope they do everything they possibly can while they're allowed inside the squared circle.
Get your Aura pictures here, Aura pictures. So they didn't have a hands-on, I guess. Because I saw pictures of up close of the new MacBook Airs, but apparently this was the display, and Tim Cook is standing in front of it. Of the new MacBooks, so you could kind of see them at a distance, but it looked like Tim was keeping people from touching it.
Some of them did get like iJustine got her hands on time. Well, no, actually, some of the YouTubers got their hands on time to shoot video, like with holding it, not using it, of course, but at least they got some touchy feely time.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So let's go. Oh boy, there's a lot to talk about. There's a new, this is kind of what you'd expect. We knew they would talk about the next Mac OS. It's called Ventura. The next iOS 16. Those will presumably be out in the fall. They didn't say specifically, but they did say developer versions are out as of yesterday, and the public betas will be out next month. So we'll all get to try that. Also, that new iPadOS, which is very interesting. Let's not get... Yeah. And then the new watchOS 9. So I think we have to go through this bit by bit. They didn't mention tvOS, but Mikah has put a link to a 9 to 5 Mac article where they talked about it. I want to start with the M2 because, I don't know. That's for me... I was looking for hardware. Remember last week, Renee and everybody were lowering expectations, saying they might not announce hardware. I think supply chain is, of course, still a big concern, but they were able to announce the M2. AnandTech had a pretty good description of what's going on in the M2 as far as they could deduce. Obviously, nobody's got hands-on until we have benchmarks. Nobody will really know. But it's a... it's interesting. Anand says they're basically on an 18-month cadence. They also answered one question, which I'm sure Renee will answer further when he gets here next week. It seems to be the SoC built or a derivative of the A15, which is what we expected. The M1 was a derivative of the A14. Clock speeds are unknown on the M2, but it is a bigger chip, 20 billion transistors, which is 25% more than the M1, and 5 billion more transistors than the A15 in your iPad. So it's not an A15; it's more than, but it's based on the architecture of the A15. Second, they called it the second generation 5 nanometer process, which Anand says is likely TSMC's N5P line, which is also used for the A15. N5P offers improved performance characteristics versus N5, but not density improvements. So that's why the chip is a little bit bigger. You have to make room. It's not more dense. Apple went through a few of the quilt. I love that term, by the way, Mike. I'd never heard that before.
That was Andy's.
Was it?
Yeah.
The feature quilt.
Feature quilt. The feature quilt for this had a lot of details, but as always, until you get your hands on the thing, it's kind of hard to know exactly what it is.
A lot of it just looks very incremental. I'm surprised that it's stuck with just 2 Thunderbolt ports supported, because that for a lot of people, myself included, that's one of the few real bottlenecks of owning a machine that has an M1. And it seems, I wonder if Apple is making that sort of a distinction between people who need to upgrade to one of the Macs or one of the Pro CPUs, that no, you're going to get just 2 Thunderbolts, probably limited to just 2 displays, no matter what machine you have. A lot of the stuff, I was reading the same AnandTech teardown as you did, and a lot of this stuff is what impressed me is that a lot of it is not so much working, not as much doing calculations faster, as much as moving data in and out faster. Like there's a more shared L2 cache, more memory. That's a big deal, is accessing more memory. So having a 24 gig ceiling instead of 16, which when you think that the Pro and the Ultra CPUs are basically scaled up versions of the M1 and the M2, you have to imagine this will also mean that when we get to the Pro series and the Max, that means that you will also have like a convergent expansion of top amount of memory available to those machines too. Faster DDR5 instead of DDR4, so that's higher bandwidth. So it's incremental. I think I'll just say that I wonder if a lot of people listening like have the same adjustment that I'm making, that whenever I see, oh, this isn't the M1, this is the M2, that puts me in the mind of, oh my God, this is going to be a whole new redesign. This is going to be able to do magical things that it wasn't able to do before. It'll smell like strawberries all the time when you're working with it. Whereas it's more like the like iPhone CPU upgrades, where yes, it's basic, or when Intel has you still have an i7 processor, but it's a new version of the i7 processor, so it's going to be incrementally faster.
Yeah, I thought 24 gigs was interesting, although the base model, according to the Apple Store, is still 8 gigs, which is kind of nutty. I guess do they turn off 3 of the 4 banks or something? I don't know what they're doing. It's a little annoying. Maybe it's a binning issue. They may not have the yield to do all 24. Gigs, although I guess now it'll be 24, 48, 96, 192, like the multiples, which is interesting. It is DDR5, as you pointed out, 100 gigabytes a second memory bandwidth. That's a big increase. That's 50%.
That's 50%, yeah.
Did your people, Alex, get excited over that? Because I know from the point of view of a GPU, having very fast unified memory available, and a lot of it available to the GPU, is a big deal.
Well, that's been something a lot of people are paying attention to, is that unified memory architecture. So for many of the things that we want to do, everything from iOS to the macOS, being able to have that work is very complex. And this morning we were talking about audio, video, WWDC updates, and we had the CTO from Filmic Pro from Filmicon, as well as a lead engineer from Fusion and the lead engineer from Mix Effect. And one of the things they talked about is how a lot of them are writing to the metal. I mean, writing to metal, but writing like they are on the exotic solution process, where they're running out of, they're just
to
right
get every inch of speed out of there.
Yeah.
Anantech says the memory bandwidth is often a bottleneck with GPUs, so getting a faster bandwidth. But they also point out DDR5 is not new. The M1 Pro, Max, and Ultra had DDR5, which I did not know. It was only the original M1 that was stuck with DDR4. Still, so that 100 gigabit, that 50% improvement is only over the original M1. But still, this is important, and it's a lot of memory, and the faster it gets, the better it gets. They also, the biggest change in the M2 is not CPU so much as GPU. Were they excited about that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's just going to mean as we go through, the GPU is used in so many places. It's everything, from obviously Apple's talking a little bit about scaling, but it's also just every single part of what we do, from 3D models to video to even audio, is affected by the GPU performance. And so increasing the GPU capacity as well as increasing the speed is incredibly important for what we work on.
They claim 18% faster CPU. And again, we don't know what the clock speed is, so it's unknown really what that means, because the efficiency cores and are different from the performance cores, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
And I think that the problem really is that a lot of the traditional testing that people would do around clock speed, around individual small tests, aren't as accurate, because when you start talking about the throughput speed, the how it's managing all of the data, it may not measure on a clinical test that's a lot faster, and then it actually becomes a lot faster as you move
Sure,
down the
because
path.
your render's faster, even though the CPU isn't faster. Everything's moving through the.
And
is 100
and even
gigabytes a
then-
second a fast? Is that fast? Yes, it is.
As far as I know, I actually don't know that number well enough, so I don't know if that's.
It feels fast.
It feels really
It feels
fast. You know,
fast.
like I can feel the wind going through my hair, you know, on that. But I don't know whether it's the, you know, I'm going fast or it's just a windy day.
They're claiming a 35 up to 35% faster GPU, so almost double the increase for the GPU. And I, by the way, I've been talking about this for some time because we knew it would probably be based on the A15. That Apple's problem is when the M1 came out, it was such a leap forward, you know, 5 times faster and things. They're not going to be able to do that every generation. So this was going to be the beginning of incremental improvements along the line. And the real question is, you know, where these improvements are, and, you know, clearly focusing on the neural engine, it's 40% faster, and on the GPU, it's 35% faster is, you know, a smart way to go, I think.
And they add the ProRes, the ProRes and the H264, H265 compressors right into the chip. So that was external before.
Oh,
and
I didn't know that. So that's now
ProRes,
on the processor.
Yeah, it's on the processor. And what's interesting about that is that it's a lot. I think it's a lot faster because it's now in the chip. It's no longer part of the board. So in the Macs, the Studio Macs as well as the 16-inch Macs, those chips were discrete and they were on the board. By putting them into the central processor, you end up with a lot more delivery of the data. So it's going to be a lot faster.
So on chip is now the high-performance media engine, the ProRes encode and decode.
It's incredible. Yeah.
Support for 6K external displays. That's new.
I think one. I think
display.
Yeah, we talked that we talked about a lot.
Really?
So yeah, a lot of people want. Yeah, when you look at the laptops, you really, you know, a lot of people want to come home and have it be part of their system as opposed to.
So you want to be able to have a 6K monitor
two 4Ks.
Yeah,
you know, like and the issue is that I think that the what I did find surprising is I know they came out with these lower end ones, and this seems to be the TikTok that they're starting to
these
follow.
These are presumably lower end. Yeah.
But the issue is that for me and a lot of people that I know, as soon as we saw an M2 13-inch Mac Pro, no one's buying a 16-inch M1. Like everyone's like, oh, you know, now it becomes
that's
this
interesting.
really high cliff because now everyone wants no one wants to buy an M1 now. You know, like you want to now wait for the
down the road there'll be an M2 Pro and Max in a 16-inch.
So everyone's going to try to hang on. So it really kills the sales to not have those Mac Pros come out at the same time.
Yeah,
and it really kicks the sales. So I think that obviously by the end of the year they're going to have to upgrade. I don't think they can wait into next year because I think it really will depress sales of the 16-inch. Maybe that doesn't matter as much to them, but for a lot of us, no one wants to buy an M1 now because they're afraid you're going to.
Micah and I were talking during the event about maybe they thought that they would slipstream. So when they did the M1 announcement with the low-end M1s, they did iMacs and Mac Minis as well as the 13-inch and the MacBook Air. Perhaps they will slipstream those extra low ends in the next few months. In fact, I already saw a rumor they might do that. An M2 Mac Mini might be in the offing. And then maybe in the fall, what was the cadence last time?
It seems like they would announce it October, November for the computers because the iPhone gets to own. The only thing the iPhone would potentially share any time with in the fall would be the Apple TV if they had some more Apple TV Plus or some kind of activation that they want to do. The one thing that could happen is, let's say, you know, the iPhone now, the Apple TV Plus now does, you know, 4K 120 frames per second, which it's capable of, but it hasn't been activated yet. And they talk about how the phone now can capture 124K and easily view it on the Apple TV. That kind of thing might happen. But outside of that, they'd really try to keep it. It's pretty much about the iPhone.
There is a choke point on the supply chain. The next iPhone will have the A16, but rumors are only the high ends, the Pros, will have the A16, and the lower ends will stick with the A15, which means a short supply in the A16. So they may be pushing up against the limitations of what TSMC can do too.
I still think Apple could flex. I know this sounds crazy, but I think that they could flex a week before the event and just go, hey, we're going to put something out next week. Here are the prices. Choose your poison without knowing what it is, just to show people that they can sell 20 million phones without even showing us what they are. Because, especially when you know that it's constrained supply.
Right.
If you know it's constrained supply, there's a lot of us that would just buy it. Like I'm going to buy that one. And we can guess what it has. I'm going to buy that one ahead of time. And I bet you it'd be 10 to 20 million people. And that would be a huge flex by Apple, just to show that we don't even have to tell people what it is, and they'll buy it.
They're just going to buy it.
It's sold out. They're going to buy it. It's sold out. We sold out. Like, I could just imagine Tim Cook walking up and going, "We sold out through the end of the year before this event." like before we even told you what it was.
They did talk.
How long before Apple offers like direct deposit? You can have your paycheck put directly on your Apple card.
Well, they do have buy now, pay later. We'll talk about that in a little bit. Maybe that's the secret. They were a little scant in details about when you can order it. They were able to put out the prices, and the only difference in pricing is $200 more for the base model MacBook Air, $1199 instead of $999. But everything else, as I believe, is the same price with the M2 in it. They also, let's not forget, they've got a Mac Pro to deliver this year. They probably don't want to steal its thunder. This is going to be interesting. And then there's supply chain, and that's a huge unknown. So all they said is available next month. Available, does that mean for pre-orders? Does that mean you'll be able to pick it up? Does that what?
Means before you can order it before July 31st.
Yeah, that's all we know.
Exactly.
Obviously there's some factory somewhere making them as fast as their little feet can scurry, but how many they'll be able to make is really going to be limited by how many chips they can get, et cetera, et cetera. And it's the legacy nodes that are even more problematic than the M2s. So there's a lot of unknowns, and I bet you supply chain king Tim Cook is fretting just a little bit over all this.
I will say that the M2, I mean, as a parent, the new M2 Air is a pretty awesome computer for your kids, like going to school or whether they're going to college or whatever. It's just a incredibly powerful machine for schoolwork.
As last year, the difference between the MacBook Air and the MacBook Pro 13 is you've got more capacity for battery. The battery's life is better. Although now that they're not a wedge, I don't know if that's the case. And you have active cooling. You have a fan in the MacBook Pro.
And more Thunderbolts, right? Or more connectivity.
More connectivity. Same number of Thunderbolt channels, but more ports.
Although you do get a MagSafe.
You get a MagSafe on both.
but only in the Air.
Oh, you don't get a MagSafe on the 13? Oh, they didn't redesign the 13. Nope. That's why. Yeah.
Nope. Yeah. So you only get it in the Air, but in the Air you get a MagSafe back. So and it looks pretty much like the old one.
Mike, it wasn't much of a redesign on the Air. They got rid of the wedge, but that's about it.
They essentially made the MacBook Air look like the other MacBooks that are available with the M1 chip. So all of them now have that. It's those four little what are they called? Plateaus on the bottom. Those little 4 plateau feet that are available on the MacBook Pros. It got MagSafe, and it has the same sort of front style with the notch as well. So yeah, they're just bringing it in line with the current design.
Everything's somewhat squared off now. Yeah,
but that's good because,
yeah, go ahead.
The wedge is starting to look. I mean, that's the original design. Like Steve Jobs pulled that design out of a little envelope. So yeah, they got Apple is not going to be happy with keeping that same stock design. I just the only thing that we often make fun of, like all these YouTube channels that what a horrible piece of news from Apple, that look how easy it is to bend and crack and destroy this iPhone simply by putting like 8 tons of pressure on it. But nonetheless, that's so thin. It was a 12.3 millimeters or something. That's so thin that even when I put my iPad Pro in my bag, if I've got that bag really stuffed full, I get worried about the pressure being put onto the iPad, that maybe it will flex a little bit and it'll put a little bend in it. I really want to see YouTubers and other people actually compare that to the old iPad, to the 13-inch MacBook, to see if it's weaker and if it's more susceptible to bending or breaking than anything else. Because that becomes, I love how slim it is. It feels as though it's going to be a challenger to my iPad Pro with the Magic Keyboard, but Oh, that's not. I will love it up until the point in which it starts to wobble like a potato chip.
MagSafe, 2 Thunderbolts on the left. It's got a high impedance headphone jack on the right.
Yeah.
Notch, and real function keys and fingerprint sensor. And then, unfortunately, because the 13-inch did not get redesigned, there's still a touch bar on the 13-inch. There's no notch, but they have big bezels. So really, it's as if the notch goes all the way around, I guess. The notch bothers me a little bit because my menu bar is so full, I have to use Bartender to scooch things out of the way because otherwise stuff literally goes under the notch, and I don't even know if it's there. And I use some programs like Emacs where if I'm full screen, the notch is there. You know, Safari and others are smart enough just to go full screen to the notch level. But the notch bugs me. I don't like the notch. On the other hand, I like it more than I like the touch bar. So I think the Air is probably the way to go. And performance-wise, the Air should be identical except for sustained throughput, right?
So yeah, so if you're going to do anything that's going to require a lot of CPU over 20 minutes, you're not. The Air is not the right thing for you. You know, so if you're
like
going to do
rendering photogrammetry.
Rendering photogrammetry, rendering video. You have a long video that needs to be rendered out or compressed. You have a 3D rendering, like much of our 3D rendering is considerably longer than 20 minutes, so sometimes all night. Yeah. And so if we're rendering something with ray tracing and global
I'll bring that home and do it on
else,
my studio. And
you should, but I mean, again, we've done it a lot in laptops, but without a fan, it will be a big deal.
Yeah.
Like it will end. It'll slow to a crawl
and I have
over
to
time.
Correct myself. That is not a courage port on the right. It is an audio jack, not a headphone jack. So,
it is high impedance, so it'll drive like really good headphones.
Yeah, pro headphones. Yeah. Anything else to say about the M2 except Apple's continuing to build upon this Apple Silicon in a very impressive fashion?
I'm not surprised that they didn't, but at the same time, I noted that they didn't go ahead and say, oh, and by the way, we have that secret little thing on the side that lets us connect multiple together. Because remember with the M1, they didn't reveal that until they revealed the Mac Studio, at which point they said, we've got this special connector that was always there, ready to have 2 of them laying side by side. They didn't mention that with the M2, but I imagine that the same thing is going to play out.
What did the office hours folks think about hardware? Anything we've left out? Because I'm sure there was a lot of conversation about that, Alex.
I mean, there was a fair bit of it. I mean, the continuity camera is really popular in office hours.
That's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, a lot of people were really. The most impressive, because I think across the board in the conversations that we've had, everyone's favorite. I mean, when we were watching, because we were watching, a couple hundred of us were watching it together yesterday. When Craig did the run, that was the hit. You know, like everyone was laughing and having a great time with it. But the thing that got everyone to like really just stop and look at what they were doing was the continuity camera with using the ultra wide and then redeforming a perspective view underneath it into something that looked flat. And there was a lot of people that were just like, whoa, like that's a flex. That was something.
Don't get your hopes up, because there was a hands-on. I can't remember who did it. It was Apple Insider or 9 to 5. Somebody obviously installed the developer beta immediately. And showed us what it looks like. Don't get your hopes up.
It was just an interesting. I mean, it's one of those things that
I too got excited. I thought, wow, that's really cool.
Well, again, I think that it's going to take a little while before they release it, so we're probably looking at an early one.
Yeah,
number 2.
This is a
lot of us have a lot of us have lots of cameras, and we probably wouldn't want that angle anyway.
Right.
But the fact that they were, really,
wasn't that cool?
That's heavy math. Like that's not like a simple math problem.
Here's Wesley Hilliard's article, hands-on at Apple Insider. He's got his iPhone 13 there. It does use the wide angle. By the way, this is actually a good thing to know. And again, this is the developer release, so this is early days. But this is center stage. He says center stage requires you to use wide angle, which means it is a little bit softer, as you can see. Portrait, Studio Light, you can stack them. Portrait and Studio Light looks pretty darn good. I really like that Studio Light feature. This is the 14-inch MacBook Pro versus the iPhone 13 Pro Max and Studio display. Studio display. Guess which one's the studio display? Holy cow! But unfortunately, this is the desktop shot. He says desk mode is a bit awkward depending on when you use it. The camera can only see so far down, so it needs plenty of space in front to actually see a desk. In our testing, desk mode focused on our chest at about a 30-degree angle below the camera at 3 feet away. So unless you have a desk on your chest, it's maybe.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's
what I had
on how
for
far.
lunch.
It was a good demo. It was a good
the
demo.
California burrito with extra salsa.
So did Camo get Sherlocked?
Doesn't look like it.
No?
Not. Yeah, no. I think that it. Camo's got some trouble. Like it's going to be, regardless.
There'll be a percentage of people who will say, "I've got all I need."
Yeah, especially folks who haven't even heard of Camo in the first place. That now they've got this feature that is built in and is a little bit more discoverable and doesn't require cables and things like that. So and at the group that they're going after right now, now they've got some trouble there. But if it doesn't work very well in comparison to me being able to have a cable plugged in that does have a very high quality video, then I'm sticking with what I got.
Well, yeah, in fact, it might be good for Camo because it'll raise the awareness that you can use an iPhone. And they may say, oh, maybe I need a better solution. And Camo's
I mean, I think that the vast majority of us within office hours is using Filmic with, or Shoot. Shoot is the
I started with Shoot. I like Shoot a lot. You told me about Shoot. I started with Shoot. I don't know why I bought Camo. I bought both of them, and I ended up using Camo. I can't remember why. But both of them are let you use the camera without any, in a clean feed. And I used it on Sunday. Our studio got fried. We had a power outage overnight on Saturday night, and an analog board got fried, even though it was on a UPS. And we couldn't do audio out of the studio. So I had to go home. Thank God I had Camo set up with my iPhone 12, and all of TWiT was done on Camo with iPhone 12, and it saved the day, to be honest. Zoom, by the way, Zoom worked better at home than it does here. Zoom is amazing, Alex, because I had to do it old school where it was one Zoom call with 4 people, and it worked great.
Yeah, it's the big tank.
Somebody pointed out there's less lag. There was less lag on that, doing it that way than there, and I guess that makes sense. We're doing here. We do 4 different or 3 different Zooms. Yeah, you pay twice for it. So that's like for the bigger shows I do, I still use individual computers for each person, like you do in TWiT. For office hours, we're using what's called Zoom ISO, which allows us to basically go into an existing meeting and grab 1080p feeds out of it. And so we pull those feeds directly, out of it and pump them into a switcher. And that's where, I think that TWiT will eventually want to go. There's a lot of development in that area. When Zoom bought Liminal, all that stuff came. I have to hire you for a consult because that was one. You don't have to hire me, Leo. You can just call me. That was one really big surprise. I'll have some. John will call you. That was a big surprise. Was that I didn't have any latency. There were people didn't talk over each other on Sunday, and it was like, wow, this should be worse, not better. But it actually was better. It makes sense because it's one Zoom call, so that they can synchronize it a little bit better, I guess. But yeah. All right. So hardware wise, what are you buying, Alex? None of the stuff. None of the stuff. You're going to wait for an M2 Pro Max. I just bought the Studio, so I made an investment recently. Fantastic. And I don't really use laptops. Studio Max. I don't need the Ultra. And I have no interest in small screens. Like I bought a 14-inch to make because I was when I travel, I'm gonna do this thing. Well, A, I haven't traveled very much, and B, I hate the 14-inch. Like I hate that form factor with a passion. Like when I open it up, I'm just like, oh my goodness, I can't believe I did this. Anyway, like every time I open it, I'm angry. I'm like, I just use my iPad. And so I hate that 14-inch and I don't like the form factor. I want to go back to the 17-inch. In fact, I'd buy an 18-inch laptop. But I don't. And you make a good point that this just telegraphs what they're going to be doing next with the more high-end stuff. Do you think the Pro will be an M2? I guess it will be. I think it'll be an M2. I think you'll end up with a MagSafe along with 2
Thunderbolts.
No, not the laptop, the Mac Pro, the desktop.
Oh, the Mac Pro?
Yeah.
Well, I think the big thing with the Mac Pro, the big question is whether they're going to make it big enough to put PCI slots in. I mean, because I think that should be there.
That's what you need.
Hope, you need internal. Yeah. So a lot of us want to, want to do that.
Andy, did you? Somebody in the chat room said, "Boy, Leo's lucky that you couldn't buy this right away because I had my finger, but there was no point in hovering it over any buy button." Andy, are you tempted?
No, I'm still waiting for whatever. I still think that the best Mac in my future is going to be a very nicely loaded Mac Mini with whatever. When they really do refresh the Mac Mini, they don't make it into a studio. They just simply say, we're going to take this form factor, we're going to take this rough price point, and we're just going to put hotter silicon in it. That's what I'm waiting for. Love the MacBook Air. If there's so many reasons today, and we'll get into some more of that later on today, but there's so many reasons now for wondering, why is Apple continuing to make a Mac line and an iPad line? Because the MacBook Air really does. If that render had come out like 2 or 3 years ago as, hey, Apple's coming out with a new iPad that has an integrated keyboard and trackpad, we would have believed it immediately, because that's the right design language, it's right the size, it's the right thickness. It's going to be interesting. We're going to be looking for a shakeup in the MacBook line, because it's hard to figure out why there's a 13-inch MacBook and a MacBook Air. Why not simply have the 2 larger sized ones and give the people who are coming in with $1,200, $1,300, $1,400 to spend on a laptop some clarity. The last thing I'll say is that I'm glad that Apple still has a $999 MacBook on the price list. I'm disappointed that we're just going to take like the last year's model and just keep it on the price list. I think that Apple really needs to maintain commitment to having at least one MacBook under $1,000, and I think they should be aiming for $899 for the minimum buy-in to buy a portable Mac. So I'm looking forward to them basically looking at the $900 price point, the $1,000 even price point, and saying, no, we're not going to just give you the old Mac. We're going to give you something brilliant and wonderful that is designed so that we can actually sell it to you and make a profit for that. But we acknowledge that a lot of people have a hard ceiling of $1,000 to spend on a MacBook.
I do like 24 gigs of RAM over 16. I think that's good. Kind of nice. What do you think, Mikah? Does any of this tempt you?
So I have an Intel MacBook Pro, a 16-inch.
Oh, well, you need a new one for sure.
So, here's the thing. It is my portable device, right? And increasingly, I am realizing that I would benefit from a smaller device that could be my portable device. It's the laptop that I use for the tech guy when I come in on Saturdays with you, and I've got that little desk to sit it on, my little lunch tray. And so I've got this Mac Studio that is blazing fast. It's amazing, that I'm using right now, that I use for my shows, and it is great. But as a secondary device, I think now that it would be my, true secondary device. I don't know if I want to wait for the 14-inch MacBook Pro that's, will come out with the M2 chip, or, dig in right now with the 13-inch MacBook Pro, or even the MacBook Air, because for my purposes as a secondary device, any of those is
any
a
M1
step up.
Yeah, it's going to be better. Yeah, that's always true. The people who are really, have old machines, anything that you step up to. I bought a M1 Mac Mini instead of a studio for the studio, my radio studio, and it's been great. And it's frankly indistinguishable in day-to-day operation from any other M1. And I'm not sure the M2 will be noticeably different from any other M1.
I think it depends on what you do with it.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. But I'm talking about day-to-day, email, web browsing, stuff most people do, not photogrammetry.
No, I have 7 of them. so like and I have 5 or 6 of those I own. 6 of them I bought myself, not the company. Like I own. Well, I have them for office hours, and they are. Most of them are 8 gigs because I just needed them quickly, and I didn't think, and they've been fine. And then the 116 is here that I use for a variety of things, and it's. I can hit the ceiling on it. Like it's not like DaVinci Resolve will hit the ceiling, on it.
What does that mean? Is it slows down, or
it starts to crawl? It starts to have some anomalies. It's just way.
It's unreliable. That's not
well. Good. It's 6. It's to be fair. It was 6 channels or 6 video streams of 5.7K Blackmagic RAW.
Well, of course it crawls. Okay. See, your
I'm
day-to-day
just saying,
operation
I can hit the
is a
ceiling.
little different.
When I move that to the studio, it
handles
just runs like butter.
Isn't that
like it just goes,
amazing?
hello. You
That's
know, like
amazing.
I can now do it. So I know where but for almost everything I do on a day-to-day basis, 90% of it, the Mac Minis just rock. You know, and I love them. Yeah.
I have to say the new Air has some compelling features, even if you had the M1 Air, a 1080p camera, although we haven't yet seen, there's Mac Studio also has a display, also has a 1080p camera. That by itself doesn't tell you anything. 0.44-inch height, which is interesting because the MacBook Air with that wedge starts at 6.16 and goes to 0.63. I guess I should do it in metric, but I'm sorry. This is America. And weight, I thought 2.7 pounds, that sounds heavy, but it is still lighter than the M1 MacBook Air by 1/10 of a pound. So there are reasons you might want to look at a new Air. And I have to say, I feel like by not redesigning the MacBook Pro 13-inch, Apple might have made a little bit of a mistake.
Yeah. I'm a little disappointed too that one of my favorite rumors about the MacBook Air was that they are going to offer it in the same really wonderful range of colors as they created for the iMacs.
Didn't do it.
It's like, okay, it's not bad, but I understand that they can't have a whole bunch of lime green. They can't find out by empirical failure that no one wants the lime green Air, and the lime green Air is the only one that you can actually pick up at the store today. The rest of them have like a 3-month wait.
Frankly, with the supply chain issues, I'm surprised they even did four SKUs.
True.
Right? This is, you don't want to make more than you have to. I guess there's no supply chain issue in color. Aluminum.
I mean, the great thing about having three, you have 2 shades of gray. That means that you're not going to think twice about putting really cool stickers on it.
Oh, the third thing on the MacBook Air is that 24 gigs of RAM. The M2. I think that's a significant difference.
I just think it's available in black.
Oh, you just still want black? Is anodized aluminum in black
I just
hard to
black.
do?
Isn't it in black? Didn't it have a black?
There's no black. It's gray, silver.
Midnight, so it's dark. Yeah.
It's not that
No,
dark.
midnight's fine. It's okay. But
okay.
But black would be great.
I gotta look at I gotta look at how dark midnight is
for your military ops, of which you have plenty. You have a long list of clients.
Let's see. Let's look at colors.
It's streaming.
Oh yeah, it is black.
Everywhere.
That is black.
It's pretty dark. It's
That's
black.
not.
They're
You know what?
black,
I would buy. You know what? You convinced me. I just thought it was the metallic gray, the slate gray. But no, that's pretty dark.
It's pretty
midnight
dark.
to starlight is how it
it's
goes.
kind of a blue hued black.
Yeah.
Is it?
I mean, this is black.
Yeah,
This
you
the
paid
last time
$100
Apple
extra
did.
for that.
Yeah.
This looks pretty good. I did not fully appreciate it. This is the midnight. There's the space gray, there's the silver, and there's the starlight. I'm going to go black.
I think Apple, they made a gold watch. They should make a quote unquote, but instead of gold for the laptop, they should make it Vanta black. It's just like because the logo would just look like it would look like there's a black hole in front of you with a logo just floating in front of it.
Stealth.
Awesome.
I want a stealth.
Yeah, stealth.
That would be cool.
We'll leave that as an exercise for Mr. Beast.
Yeah, exactly.
Vanta black. The blackest black.
Just don't touch it or pick it up or move
it's
it.
Spinal
or put it in
Tap
the case.
black.
Yeah. There's that.
The blackest of
you're
black.
being so practical.
Super. Okay. I wouldn't. Okay. Now I'm a little more interested in the. I didn't realize it was that dark in midnight.
Yeah. I'm hoping that we see more of those choices. I don't really need green or purple. I just need as black as it can be.
Let me see if I got that and I maxed everything out. So I got 24 gigs of RAM. I got 2 terabytes of storage. I got the 67 watt USB-C. Oh no! Oh, they have now this dual port adapter, which was kind of hysterical.
If you max it out, you get the really good 65 watt adapter. Otherwise, you get the 35 watt no extra ports. I think.
No, remember we thought Mike and I were kind of stunned by this. This we thought was going to be a third party, but Apple's offering you. Yep. It's only 35 watts though.
Oh, okay. But you get the 65 if you
get the 67.
Higher spec
you could choose. No, you could choose either. Well, maybe because I'm higher spec. Either one you get to choose. I'll go Yeah, gosh, that's a good.
I believe.
don't.
I
I
believe
have
that
plenty
if,
of
I
high
believe that if you
wattage
buy-
adapters. I don't need that. Maybe I'll get the dual one just for fun.
I actually have to say that I don't find the Apple power supplies
No.
in general to be competitive anymore. Like
No.
I wouldn't.
I get plenty of GAN
Like, 'cause
adapters from all the
Exactly.
major players, and I really like them, and I'm going to keep
Yeah.
using those. So $2,500 maxed out.
Wow. For a MacBook Air, I know that's not an unreasonable amount of money for a machine of that performance and that design, but I will always think of the MacBook Air as the wildest amount of money you spend on it is $1,500. Above that, you're in MacBook Pro territory.
Yeah.
Well, the one thing is it's important for the marketing teams at a lot of big companies because the marketing teams can't often get pros. So they can't get them. They can't get the
because they're marketing.
Weird,
Oh, sorry.
They're
You don't
marketing,
need
so
a
they can
pro.
only get the Airs. Yeah. So you can't buy the pros unless you're an engineer, or you can't request them. So a loaded Air might be good also for marketing.
Especially in Midnight
bureaucracies
Black.
are hysterically funny.
Yeah, they are funny. They create a lot of odd flows.
Let's take a little break because I really want to talk about iPadOS. And Apple has now made clear, after a lot of speculation on our part, what the intent was with the iPad. And it's clear now, I think. At least it is in my mind. I'll see if it is in yours, what they intend to do with the iPad. But first, a word from our sponsor. Our show today brought to you by ZipRecruiter. We have, I don't know how many, 3? We have a number of employees we hired with ZipRecruiter. It's been really great for us. We love ZipRecruiter. And here it is summertime, and man, the job market is red hot, right? Where do you find people? If you're a business owner, the last thing you want to do is spend your free time sorting through unqualified candidates when you could be spending time on vacation at the pool or at a backyard barbecue or gardening or something. That's why you need ZipRecruiter, to find good candidates. They do the work for you. And now you can try it free at ZipRecruiter.com/MacBreak. Did I say good? Great candidates. We love the people we've hired through ZipRecruiter. There are a lot of reasons to use ZipRecruiter. You cast the widest possible net. They're posting to 100 plus job boards. Plus, all of those resumes, all of those emails don't go into your inbox. They go to the ZipRecruiter interface, where it's easy to eliminate unqualified candidates. You have questions, you can ask them things like that, screening questions. They reformat all the resumes so they're very easy to scan through. It makes it very simple to rank and rate people so that you can find the right people fast. And there's one more thing ZipRecruiter does that is fantastic. They find the right candidates for your job. They offer you, they go through all the resumes they have on file. They take all those resumes, they scan through them, and they find ones that meet your qualifications. They send them to you so you can invite them. And I got to tell you, when you invite somebody to apply to your job, their ears perk up, their eyes light up. They go, wow, you want me? It's a great way to start a great relationship. 4 out of 5 employers who post on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. For us, it's usually within the first hour. It's amazing. The #1 rated hiring site based on G2 satisfaction ratings as of January 1st of this year, ZipRecruiter. That's a lot of satisfaction, baby. This summer, let ZipRecruiter do the work so you can enjoy more time by the beach. Try it for free at ZipRecruiter.com/MacBreak. ZipRecruiter.com/MacBreak. ZipRecruiter, the smartest way to hire. Thank you, ZipRecruiter, for supporting MacBreak Weekly and my very expensive Macintosh habit. I think, you know what? I'm happy with the Mac Studio, but I feel like we probably should get, right, Mikah? We need to get an M2 just to talk about it, just to review it, right?
Of course, Leo. Of course you need to get an M2.
I think, honestly, since you're still using a 16-inch Intel device, maybe you should get. Which one would you? If now remember, we're going to get it for you as your employer. Which one would you get? Would you get the Touch Bar one with the bigger fan, or would you? I think you should get an Air. Don't you think?
Yeah, because again, I just want it to be this secondary portable device.
Yeah, it's going to be
like
faster,
Air.
much faster than the 16 Intel.
Yep.
All right.
Midnight MacBook.
Would you
Air.
get it midnight just for me so I can see it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
For you.
I know
absolutely.
you probably like, what do you want? Starlight?
The plain silver.
Just silver? Boring.
Yeah.
You can get silver if you want. I'll just have to watch Alex's from a distance. Unless, Alex, you find somebody that can make it Vanta black.
I know.
I bet you there's somebody that does that.
No.
I bet you somebody does
exactly.
that, right?
I don't know. I mean, it'd be a horrible waste of money because it would scratch off in like 10 seconds.
Oh, it's just a paint job?
It's a paint. I mean, if I think it would be very hard to get Vanta black because it's the nature of the surface.
Yeah.
You couldn't. It would be very impractical.
No, you want anodized. Yeah, you'd.
Well,
exactly.
you'd want to protect it with some of that polyurethane spray at Home Depot.
Oh, there you go.
It would make it shiny, and then it would be shiny, but very it'd be
shiny.
It'd be weird highlights of stuff appearing over black. So.
If you were looking for a practical solution to anything, you wouldn't be suggesting Vanta black. You just want the flex of saying that, yes, I got the stupidest, most expensive paint job on a MacBook ever.
So Apple did announce new iOS features. They're going to be far too much for us to talk about. They took them an hour, 48 minutes. There's no way we can do it in two hours, especially since we just spent an hour talking about the M1. But so we'll get to as much as we can. But I really think the iPadOS is very interesting. We had heard rumors they were going to improve the multitasking, but it's a little different what they're doing. Andy, what does this tell you anything about Apple's strategy with the iPad?
You know, the rumors about this, we heard about Stage Manager, were that, hey, if you got a keyboard and a trackpad attached to your iPad Pro, you will be able to have overlapping windows for the first time, which sounded like a very, very simple solution to a productivity problem. Instead, they gave us a Stage Manager that is now the combined workspace manager, application switcher across the Mac and the iPad. So once again, we're getting a completely unified experience across both. And I haven't installed the developer beta on my iPad because I use my iPad every day. I only have one that will.
I've got
work
it.
With the
Did
beta.
you installed it?
Yeah,
Look, he's got it.
So if you want to see what it looks like.
All right, so
there
there
are two screens.
So a couple of questions now that thank you for doing this, Mikah. Can you hide the stage?
Yes, this is what's interesting about it is you actually have to use Control Center to turn it on and off. So if you want it on, you go down and you find a Control Center Stage Manager to turn that off, and then you'll see it goes into split view here. I'll swipe down again. I'll turn Control Center back on.
See, this is the big change from me. My point of view is from tiled windows to overlapping windows.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But can you drag that overlapping window? Yes, you can.
Yep,
Can you
the
click the Safari to bring it to the front?
Yep. Tap to bring it to the front.
So it's a windowed operating system all of a sudden. To me, that's a massive shift. That's a desktop. That's a desktop shift.
Absolutely. I'm really, and also the fact that you can have that pin to, Mikah has a pin to the left, but you can also have it pinned to the bottom, I think, of the screen. So it's
Can I get it to the right? Because I like
that's
to
where I want it to.
You can't. Yeah. Maybe you can on the Mac. This is the iPad.
But the idea that you can drag windows in and out of that shelf and group and ungroup and essentially try to have the same sort of mojo you got going on with the iPad that I like, which is focus on one app at a time very, very easily, but also easily switch between a different workspace or a different set of tools grouped together. That's really interesting and really powerful, even on the Mac. But it is, as you say, it is a huge shift from what the iPad was designed to do originally. I actually thought that Apple's idea of having a tablet OS, a touch OS, and how it would manage Windows and apps simultaneously compared to Windows was a lot more forward thinking. Instead of just simply having, we'll do this the same way we've done since the mid 1980s. The idea of saying, no, we're not going to let you have like 4 windows open everywhere and overlapping and however you want, but we will make it so easy to place them and to make them into a very, very productive workspace, meaning that we're not imagining that you're going to be using an iPad for something that would be better suited for a notebook. We imagine that what you want to do is have a column of notes and an outliner that you're making notes from, but you also have a PDF document in the main tile or a worksheet or a web page that you're making notes from. That's what I really, really like about being productive with the iPad. So I'm really, really keen to see, as soon as the public beta comes out, how natural it is to actually use this. I'm sure it's going to help that I'll probably be using this on an external display, but
which is another feature that they've.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I was furiously making notes. Go ahead.
Let me ask Mikah. Can you? So there's limited to 2 different windows. Is that right?
Oh, let me see if I can pull up a third.
up to 4 windows with no overlap without overlapping.
I talked about this yesterday. In the early days of computing, there was a debate over. Go ahead, show Mikah's screen because that's all I really care about, not me.
I haven't gotten there yet.
Okay, yeah. So there was a debate in the earliest days of windowing. I mean, like Xerox PARC days, whether you should have tiled windows, which is a lot easier for the computer, or overlapping windows, and overlapping windows kind of won with the original Macintosh and with Windows on PCs. But as soon as we went to the iPad, suddenly it was full screen, period, or nothing. And then with multitasking, they got tiled windows. This is a big leap into a different world of computing. And really what it tells me is that Apple has a fork in the road. That Apple is now saying we have essentially 2 desktop operating systems, one for people with touch and one for people with a mouse, one for people who want to get a lot of powerful work done. Because they added to the file manager, they added to files a lot of kind of, you can rename, you can change extensions. That's a desktop concept that was alien to the iPad until very, very recently.
Well, and fundamentally,
go ahead.
I think any question that these operating systems aren't slowly finding they're finding their way together. Like, the iOS and macOS, the iPadOS.
But there'll still be a distinction, right? Because one's touch. I don't think they're ever going to put touch on the Mac, right?
Yeah, but I think that the development of those, I think that you could end up with 2 different interfaces. Like we think about that when we think about dynamic interfaces, where you have an interface that's touch, an interface that is more mouse driven, and like you would have when we build web pages, we have one for mobile, one for desktop. It displays itself differently depending on what it's on. So a kind of a responsive interface for the same app, I think, could be something that we could see in the future.
Well, one of the things I was thinking about was that, so we mentioned that it also is that the iPadOS is going to also be supporting external displays for the first time, meaning not just simply mirroring the iPad display to a larger display, but actually having a second display the way that we expect it to work on the iPad. And I imagined immediately what would happen with universal control. So if I have 2 monitors, my 2 identical like Dell favorite monitors on a 2-arm like pivoting stand, and I'm using universal control, I'm assuming that universal control will work on an iPad external display. Given that they're both both the Mac and the iPad are going to be using Stage Manager, both the Mac and the iPad are the third-party apps are probably going to be trying to support Apple's new concept of toolbars. It's going to be a very, very shared experience. It's going to be very, very difficult to tell the difference between what I'm doing on the Mac versus what I'm doing on the iPad, and that is a signal change between what Apple's been doing with the iPad.
I think
since
Apple's
the very launch of the
messaging
device.
and advertising will all point you. Remember, what's a computer, right? They'll point you, the younger generation that's used to iOS and touch will be now, I think, just as productive on an iPad as they would be on a desktop. They'll prefer iPad if you want mobility, if you want to work in your lap. There'll be a lot of reasons why people will say, oh, no, I don't think there's going to be any confusion. I think old school people will want a Mac, and I think a younger generation, I think your kids, Alex, will want an iPad.
Yeah, my kids are. They've had iPads almost their entire life, so they are very facile with the iPads, and so I think that they will continue down that path. I think that the thing that I have trouble with is that there's just things that are difficult to do with touch. I think OmniGraffle is a good example of something that I build wiring diagrams in OmniGraffle.
Yeah, you're going to get a
do
desktop
on the iPad.
Yeah,
well, but I couldn't. I don't. There's nobody, young or old, that could build a wiring diagram as fast as I build them in the desktop version on the iPad. Not because it's that you're comfortable with one or the other. It's that the touch interface just isn't.
A mouse is better for that.
For that one thing.
Yeah.
So there's a handful of things that are going to be like that they require a precision that you can't get with your finger. And I think that's where we're still going to be problematic. Maybe with a pencil. Maybe you can get closer.
I think photographers,
I would love to draw it out.
Photographers, artists will gravitate towards touch.
Yeah.
I think that, for word processing, is this as good? Probably not.
Oh, yeah. I think the iPad you can word process.
Okay, yeah. I guess with a real keyboard and all that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
But also there's things that are a lot more subtle about that. Like being able to do virtual memory swap in the new iPadOS, so that you'll have, so that since you're now having 3, 4, 5, whatever, however many apps open at the same time, being able for each one to have 16 gigs of application RAM dedicated to it. That's not just, I think, for multitasking. That also really enables a higher class of app. I've been spending the past day trying to figure out exactly what driver kit entails for iPadOS, because one of the first things I thought about is, so if Apple doesn't want to support an external camera for the iPad, can Logitech simply write an iPad driver for their Brio camera, and now suddenly I can have an external camera for it? Just down, and I won't go through the whole list of things that I've been basically stumbling about this, but down, just so many things that are trying to make things, they're trying to give it parity with a desktop. Even I'm really excited as a practical measure, all the enhancements they're making to the Files app, and I'm slapping myself because I'm getting giddy about, oh my God, I can actually do a get info on a folder and find out how much you mean I can sort on a column of, I can sort by size, I can sort by file type, just like I've been able to do on every single computer literally since like macOS 1.04.
I mean, for the longest time we've looked at the M1 and Mac iPad Pro particularly and said that hardware is amazing, but the software doesn't live up to it. This is a seminal change. I think this really, Mikah, let me ask you, so you've been playing with it. How long have you had it? Probably not that long.
Only since this morning.
Yeah. I'm sure there are a lot of questions that so you were able to open multiple windows. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Let me show here. That's the wrong one. Nope. That's not it either. Where's iPad?
He's using eCam. There we go. Oh, look at that. Lots of windows. That's 4.
I've got 4 windows open.
And weather, by the way.
Cool, I didn't realize that so we know we can tap on another one to bring that forward, right? But while I have weather sort of focused, I can still tap and scroll on that behind.
Oh, that's nice.
Even though it's behind.
That's huge.
You can tap to bring it forward, but you can still interact with it even though it's in the background.
That's very advanced Linuxy kind of a feature. That's huge. This is, I think, the only thing holding it back really is the size of the screen, and the touch interface means the touch targets have to stay pretty big. So that whole stage on the left there, that's big. That takes up a lot of space. I'm not crazy about that. Can you auto hide that? Maybe on the Mac you'll be able to.
Yeah, I haven't seen the settings for this feature in particular, so I'm not certain.
The other thing that's
but I hope
absolutely huge, and they're talking about this in the Swift tracks, I'm sure. You develop for one platform, you're developing for all 3, iOS, iPadOS, and macOS. Although, interestingly, I understand that they're still using Catalyst for some of their apps. Instead of doing a cross-platform Swift UI app, they're using Catalyst for a couple of the new apps. But
I think that indicates
doesn't matter, right?
Yeah, exactly. I think it indicates a lot of faith that they have in how good that tool is.
Yeah.
They're willing to eat their own dog food. Only they don't call it dog food. They're saying, they're feeding it to consumers as well. So.
I think it's going to become more and more clear over time that there are people who are going to use the iPad and there are people who are going to use the Mac. And then there are a lot of us who will use both, right? And if when you're going omnigraphal, Alex, you're just going to say, well, let me get my Mac fired up here.
And to be clear, I would prefer to use the iPad for everything that I could. So I try to use the iPad whenever I can. In fact, I experiment with stuff even if I have normally done it on the Mac.
Yeah.
And again, I think I've talked about this before. I have a very hybrid, is a good example, how I develop presentations. I use notes, and that can be on the iPad or the computer or even my phone. I then sketch every slide for Keynote. In Keynote, I'm in the iPad drawing, like, this is what I want this slide to look like. And I go through that. But then I go back to the Mac to build it because the iPad, the touch process, and I have built
continuity makes that
presentations
very easy, doesn't it?
Yeah. I have to admit, I've been a little modal in how I do it, but I think the continuity would make it a lot easier. What does make it easier is that I'm saving to iCloud. So I just finish what I'm doing on my iPad. I open it up on my Mac and I go back.
That was another huge feature in Monterey that they showed, which is if you're using Pages, Keynote, a number of apps, you can collaborate, but you'd be collaborating with yourself. It doesn't have to be a second person, but you can have the same document open up in 2 different places and changes reflected in both places. And they have an API for that. I think that benefits the single person as much as it does a team.
Yeah.
Very interesting. Tomorrow, thanks to Kovar in our Discord, tomorrow is use Xcode Xcode to develop a multi-platform app. That's the track for tomorrow. Learn how you could build apps for multiple Apple platforms using Xcode 14. We'll show you how to streamline app targets, maintain a common code base, and share settings by default. We'll also explore how you can customize your app for each platform through conditionalizing your settings and code so you can make it be native depending on the platform. Joe says, I'm hoping they don't attempt to turn iPadOS into a pseudo macOS. And I think that was one of the, the fears I had, right, was that they would either, I was actually maybe a little more afraid they were going to iPadify the Mac, but you could also say, I hope they don't Macify the iPad. But this is not that. I think they're going to have two very separate I don't know if it's going to be very separate, but I think it is taking what the Mac does and rethinking it. Yes. So it's kind of, the iPad is this a little bit more of a clean slate. The Mac has a lot of technical debt. Right. And so the thing is that the iPad can be something you can go, hey, this is really necessary on the Mac. This would be great on the iPad, and we'll add it. But they are leaving lots of things behind because those things are, again, part of the history, not part of the future.
Yeah, I mean, think about how now they're redoing settings in macOS for the first time in probably since macOS 10 to make it look a lot, depending on your sense of history, to make it look and work the way that it does on the iPad or the way that it does in macOS 6.02. Having a scrolling list of different panes and panels, and then that's how you get to each individual setting panel, as opposed to here's some icons that. Honestly, I only navigate them by doing a spotlight search for the feature or the thing that I want to adjust, because it's hard to navigate visually all these icons. It's much easier simply to have an alphabetical list. I really do think that they want to have as much of a, if the Macs and the iPads don't necessarily cover the same ground, Apple at least wants to have as much of a shared experience as they possibly can. And maybe that answers back to my complaint about, I really want Apple to always have like a really good $900, $1,000 Mac. Maybe their statement is that, well, what used to be the MacBook Air is now like the $799 M1 iPad.
Oh, there we go. I was going to show you. This is the best I can do with what I've got, but that's the new settings screen in macOS. So the icons are off to the side. It looks different. They also redesigned Fontbook and did it up in Swift UI, which I'm a little disappointed because I love my Fontbook and I didn't want anybody messing with that. Fontbook is as plain an app as you could get. It's just a list of fonts and what they look like. What could they do to make it bad? It's because it was so simple. They could rebuild it using Swift and Swift UI, so they kind of went with that. But yeah, this, which by the way, incredibly hot. 16-inch Intel. Mikah, you have my permission and encouragement the minute those orders go up to order any color you want MacBook Air. I felt comfortable installing the beta on here. That'll be your beta machine. That'll be your beta machine. I feel like there were a couple of moments in this yesterday where Apple announced, and probably to little applause, some life-changing things. This iPadOS is one of them. The other one is Passkey. Yes. So Steve Gibson's talked about Passkey. This is an initiative from Google, Microsoft, and now very much Apple to eliminate passwords. And I think that in a few years, you're going to look back on passwords and say, that was I think a lot of us have been trying to get past it and past the Passkey, and I think, or past the password, and I think that was probably the most important announcement yesterday. Was the fact that we're going to get to a point where we're building it into the infrastructure and I think it's going to be transformational to the whole world, because as people start to get out of that and because it's being supported by a lot of other people. It could potentially be a really big deal. Well, and it doubles down on the biometrics that Apple is now basically putting everywhere. And I expect to see biometric keyboards for the desktops as well. Because now using biometrics, Face ID or Touch ID, you can have an absolutely phishing-proof login to apps and websites. And you don't need a password. You don't need a password manager. That's going to be very, very big. The thing that is really important, though, is that Apple is pairing that up with other privacy initiatives, because the real thing now is that we will know who you are, and we have to protect what that means. That's right. In a bigger, and because we will absolutely know that you're on that computer and it's you interacting, and that's going to be it's a tricky
problem is that people have been able to say, well, I don't know if that was me or not. You won't be able to say that anymore.
That might be good.
I think it's great. No, I think
that might be a big improvement. You've been the one arguing to eliminate anonymity online.
Yeah, I think that it's great. It's going to change the way we interact with people, but there are people that it puts in danger that need to be able to be, so we just have to kind of weigh that out. And I think that the company that is probably the most ahead of that is Apple, thinking about how are we going to keep us private, but authenticated.
Well, and I think that's also why they announced, what was it, SafeKit or what did they? Personal safety. They
safety check.
Safety check.
Yeah.
And I saw a number of women, quite a few women on Twitter saying, you don't even understand how important this is.
Yeah.
This is huge for domestic violence victims, for partners of crazy people, for people who want to, separate their identity. And I think it maybe goes hand in hand with Passkey. In other words, if you're going to have Passkey, you need safety check. Apple pays attention to this stuff. God bless them. And of course, they learned their lesson with AirTags, and I think that also heightened their awareness. Anything else we want to say about iPadOS weather?
We're such Apple people. Oh my God! Thank God! Well, thank you, Apple. You gave us a weather app.
They led with that. They knew. We know that a built-in calculator app is way too much to ask, but we're so thrilled we get to know what the weather is.
Actually, there was one thing that I wanted to ask Alex about. That what do you think about reference mode on the iPad?
What is reference mode?
Once I see it, I'm super excited about it. I was really excited. So reference mode is the idea that one of the things that when we're trying to work on a project, we used to joke that NTSC meant never the same color. And so you don't know, like a lot of times I use my iPhone, literally I turn off whatever my, I have a warm view on my iPhone all the time. But if I don't do that, I turn it off and I look at a live stream, and I consider most of the time that is the most accurate view I have of the color, of how the color looks, because Apple spends so much time on it. But having a reference mode that says, we're going to turn off everything else, we're going to not make any corrections, this is a very accurate, and for them to call it reference mode, I feel like they're putting a lot of effort into it. So that if I look at those colors of the real, that is incredible. If you're sending out an iPad, I mean, it makes for an ad agency, for a production company, it makes these iPads almost required issue.
Interesting.
Because now I can send you something and you go into reference mode and you look at it and you say, okay, I want that yellow to be 2% less green or whatever that is. They can make those adjustments, and we have a single point of the truth. And theoretically, if everybody's in reference mode and they're getting the same signal, it just means that they all have colors that agree on. They can have those conversations. It's a huge problem. Like, we have reference monitors that we don't trust because of what is the ETLF?
Is it a big deal they're putting liquid retina on the MacBook Air? Is that important too?
It's somewhat. The MacBook Air, I mean, the display is fine.
It's not great.
It's
well, that's
not,
what I'm saying. They're putting up a good, that much better display now, though. They're putting liquid retina on it.
Yeah, sure. I mean, but again, I would actually trust the iPad in reference mode more than, it's something, it's being able to say, I trust this to be accurate. Now, it's not going to be 100% accurate. There's, you can get these much more expensive, $10,000, $20,000 monitors that we pay attention to. Our colorists use, but I can't afford that. So I need something that I can look at. And I think that this being outboard, like having an iPad that I look over at and I send something out from Resolve or send something out from Final Cut and look at it and go, okay, am I happy with those colors? And I have a fairly good idea that I'm pretty close to a good source of the truth, I think is important.
Yeah. Mikah has pulled up the privacy and the security page. Go ahead, Mikah.
So here's the prediction that I'd like to make. I think this is very interesting. It wasn't covered on stage, but it was something that flew by at the platform State of the Union. If you go on the beta, privacy and security, and you scroll all the way down, there's a new thing under security called developer mode. And I want to read the text before I make my prediction. It says, if you're developing apps for Apple products, developer mode allows you to use features that are required for app development. When developer mode is turned on, your device security will be reduced.
This is on the iPad.
My prediction, this is on the iPad. It'll be on the iPhone as well. This is an iOS, iPadOS feature that lets developers right now install their apps and do tests. I think this is laying the groundwork for a future in which Apple is forced to allow side loading.
Yeah.
This is like in case we need to do this,
Nice.
we have this now switch toggle that we can.
Instead of test flight, you can kind of turn on this low security mode and side load apps. Yeah, I think you're right. I think this is them putting that in there. Yeah.
Like the way Android does it, where it's there,
Yep.
you have to look for it, you have to dig for it.
Yeah.
But the
you have to
assumption
tap
is
the
that if
button
you know,
10 times or
But the assumption is that if you know to look for it, then clearly you are at least on your way to understanding that you're taking a risk and you're doing something outside the norm.
Yeah, very interesting.
That's an interesting
Good catch.
thought.
Yeah. Very interesting catch. I probably shouldn't downplay the importance of the changes to messages either. As Google continues to stumble with Android messaging, Apple has just getting better and better. Now they have editing in messages. They also have you can edit any message within 15 minutes. You can pull back a message within 15 minutes, so you can unsend. They're also much improving dictation. The keyboard will stay up. You'll be able to edit your dictation as you go. I think this is maybe also going to be a life-changing improvement.
I think it is. I think that I think this also is one of the reasons that Apple wouldn't be able to integrate with another message system, because you probably can't do that if it's green bubble.
Yeah.
Because once it's gone, it's gone.
Yeah.
So with messages, that interaction between it would have to be their own servers to be able to execute that.
SharePlay via messages, collaborating via messages. This is very, this is that thing Apple does so well that it's great for users. It's also great for the business because it really locks you into the ecosystem.
Well, and also if someone says, well, you should just interact, Apple's like, well, we've got a lot of things that we can't.
You can't do it. We could turn off all
all
those great features, I guess.
But to be fair, you could simply enable the features that you can cross-communicate with and just simply reserve the ones.
Well, they
that
do.
you can't.
You got a text message bubble, right? You got the SMS bubble. Good luck to you.
I'm sorry, we can't do sans serif text or non-monospace text with SMS. Our hands are just tied.
I do think that when I looked at the photo sharing, they showed the new photo sharing where you can have these shared photo libraries, and I can already see there's like 2 holdouts in my family that don't have iPhones that are going to get a lot of.
They're all going.
We're sharing.
Yeah.
We're sharing this whole library. It's going to be great, except for you two.
Well, and you're going to sell a lot of iPhones because Apple has said that iOS 16 will only be available on iPhone 8s and later. If you have an iPad that's not a Pro, a lot of the new features will require a Pro. Although you will be able to do external display support on an iPad Air as well, but not the least expensive iPad. Nothing.
A lot of people are pretty salty about all these features that are M1 iPad Pro exclusive instead of just like 2 years ago.
Will you live in reference mode, Alex, or will you go back and forth?
No, I'm probably not living it. I actually keep my monitors really warm because I feel like if I leave everything regular white, by the end of the day, I feel like someone's drilled. Literally, I've been looking into the sun, and so I have a tendency. My phone is usually turned down to less than half, and it's warm because it just bothers me a lot less. And so I think that I probably keep that way. And most of my monitors are very. So then when I want to do something with color, I flip them, to a more neutral state. So I can definitely see myself going back and forth.
Mike, have you played?
I don't know if they'll change.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, I don't know if they'll change this in the future, but right now, when you turn on reference mode, it does this really frightening flash of the screen that's sort of severe before it changes. And it made me a little bit like, should I even be doing this? It says, if you do this, it will affect battery life. And then there's fine-tuned calibration. So you'll see here measured versus target calibration points. I don't know how any of it works, obviously, but
it's not for us.
That's the toggle there.
That is not for you and me. That is for others.
Do you think that maybe that's because of the display technology, where if they really are serious about reference mode, they have to set each pixel to the same state or the same electrical state before?
Oh, so
they
it has to
decide
actually.
that it works.
That makes sense. I mean,
There's also
makes sense to me what you're saying.
Can you play with it? I don't know if you have the display scaling mode, which answers my issue with running out of real estate. I don't understand quite how that works, but the idea is increasing the pixel density of the display. In other words, turning up the resolution. You can see more.
Here it is. So there are 3 options: zoomed and standard, which we've always had. Now there's an option called more space. So I'll set that.
Oh, it's just
use more space. they have to restart the iPad. So that's going to go away for a moment. Yeah. So
Okay, so you could. Okay, so it's just another scaling. It's just another scaling setting, really. It's not like I have infinite. I can go. There's no slider that says.
Yeah, it's not slider.
So I'm trying to. Is the native resolution of the iPad significantly more than what it's actually using? It must be. It must be set at a doubled resolution.
Yeah, I wish that I could show you quickly a swap between the two, but this is the new more resolution mode.
It looks. Yeah.
There's a little bit more room. These three were stacked next to each other, and there was no room on the right side for more.
So it's not hugely
it did give a little bit more.
But if you do use a multi-window situation like that, you probably want to stay in that.
If you're in Stage Manager a lot.
Yeah.
I saw another user who had the beta say that the maximum number of non-overlapping windows he could fit in his iPad were 4. So like 4, like iPhone width. When it doesn't look pretty. I hate to imagine a world in which I would wish to buy a third-party window manager for the iPad. But honestly, that's one of the things I've been really hoping for a long time. That sometimes on the iPad, I really do want to have like two, not just half an iPad display, half an iPad display. I kind of want like just 2 like iPhone columns, and then the rest of it be the piece that I'm working on, because I want to keep an eye on a Twitter flag, and I also want to keep an eye on my inbox.
I figured you probably played with Henry and Mitzi mode a little bit too, Mikah. The ability to pop your pets out.
Things out. Yes. I was actually surprised at the quality of it, because I thought that it was going to be pretty, the corners would be blurred. It'd be a little weird, but I was actually pretty impressed. So I did it with this morning on iOS today. We did it with some pets, and we also did it with, I had a photo that was mostly just a coffee mug, and I was able to take and pull out the coffee mug. I'll find.
It looks like you could turn a pet into a sticker. In effect, you could lift the subject from the background, paste it in messages, and now you have a Mitzi sticker.
So they don't actually. So that's what it did seem like at first, that they were stickers, but they are just photos.
They're just photos
that you can
without
send.
a background. Yeah.
So let me show you.
Yeah, good. I'd love to see
quick,
it. Yeah.
Just on this. So this is the mug, and if I just tap and hold on the mug where there's not text, it's important to not do a part where there's text, because if you do, then it's going to do the auto text selection. But I'll select a portion of the mug and then move it.
Look at that.
And now you'll see I've got this little mug that I could then swipe over and drop into messages.
Okay, that's pretty cool. That's pretty amazing.
That was that fast. Yeah, I just held down and moved.
And that's not a heterogeneous. You're not on a green screen. You've got a very complicated background. That's the Alex. You think that's the depth in the image? Will it work better with the image? Depth
a lot of probably. Adobe's been doing a lot of work here, and a lot of other folks have been doing a lot of work here. So it's probably it's a lot of machine learning that's there, and it's trained, and it's looking for things that it's looking for hard edges. It's looking. I'd love to see that in a more like fluffy hair kind of. Thing as far as those removals go. So it's a little bit harder to do that calculation, but not impossible. Adobe's been doing that for maybe 5 years.
Right.
And they've showed it for a decade of them doing different levels of it. And so I think
it's a magic eraser, it's edge detection, it's clipping, it's all sorts of those features. Yeah.
But what's different is that Apple has the hardware. And so what Apple's, I think, doing is using and I would guess potentially the neural engine to do some of those things where it's really smartly grabbing that, and there's no reason for it to take any time if it's got dedicated processing to manage.
It's interesting you mentioned, Mikah. You could, if you clicked on the text, it would then make that live text.
Yep, it would. It would highlight that text. Here's
and you could cut and paste it and so forth. That's really, and they showed it, of course, because it's developers. How often you've watched a YouTube video with code in it, and you can cut and paste the code. Oh, look, that's a hard one. What is that?
So this is a Highland cow that I crocheted for someone for Christmas, and so it's got some fibers and things up in the top corners. And the one thing that it gets wrong here, which is understandable, because there's a plant in the way, you'll notice that when I pull on this,
it gets cut off by the leaf.
Yeah, it does get. Well, now I've got. This is a beta,
we expected to completely rebuild. It's only in beta, but the real one, of course, we expect to completely rebuild that yard. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, exactly.
Very hard.
So, but it does a very good job.
That's pretty impressive.
Of taking out what's there.
Yeah, you have to put it on some white, and let's go to multi-window mode.
I'll do that. Yeah. I'm just trying to be mindful of people's privacy while doing this. So,
I know. I was going to show how we did the cover art for our show yesterday, and with emojis, and I realized that I have to be in messages.
Here we go.
And then I had all these messages.
Oh, yeah,
I
you
couldn't
can't
figure
show
out what-
messages.
Yeah, messages on iPad is bad because it'll show everyone else's messages. So
Oh,
here
that's
are the
pretty
edges.
good. There's a few errors up in the upper
Yeah, it's
right.
not super,
But
but
not
to do
bad.
it that quickly
Not
is
bad.
very impressive. I mean, especially look around the tongue here.
Yeah,
It got
that's
all
good
those little
enough.
fibers.
That's good
Yeah.
enough. Holy cow.
That's really good.
Wow.
And also, it's a good starting point. I could then take that into an app and pull off my Apple Pencil and start.
Yeah, but they know no one's
masking
going to
away.
do that. They know that this is just for
Exactly,
you
it's not.
to do, cut out the back, cut out the ex-boyfriend or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
But if that were a feature in the Photos app, you could just put a slider to say be a little bit more aggressive, be less
Right,
aggressive.
right.
It's such a big deal.
I suspect they'll do that, yeah.
Yeah, one of the other things I loved about the keynote, and in the sense that this is why I have like a whole other like subhead in my Omni Outliner doc, is about here's all the things that are kind of cool about what Google does, that they are now saying that's a good idea. Let's do that. That wouldn't be too hard for us to do that. Let's do it ourselves, or let's do something that historically people have thought that, well, only Google has a really great Maps app. Only Google does really good document collaboration or really good translate, or if the Google Lens, that's really cool. Let's show that we can actually do that too. And so why would you use the Google version of it when ours is so much more private?
I want to take a little break. I want to come back. Apple did do something else that I thought was interesting. They announced a new app. And it's unclear exactly what the intent is, but I'd love to get... I think it's deeper than it looks, but we'll find out with our esteemed panel, Mikah Sargent, Andy Ihnatko, Alex Lindsay. Renee is, of course, on assignment somewhere deep within the confines of the Apple campus.
I got to see him briefly yesterday, and he's very okay. So he's still alive.
You got to
he's
see him in
undisclosed
person?
Cable in the back
location.
of his skull.
You got to see him in person?
I drove down after we finished our
What?
event, and I got done with some stuff just because I knew that there were going to be a few folks there that I knew.
Did you have
and
to
so I
like
did-
stand outside the gate and say, I'm out
But
here?
basically, that's pretty much what I had to do for Renee. Other people I was able to see, but he was very, very busy. And so I got to, give him a little pat on the shoulder and say hi. And then
Oh, good.
he
So
had
he's
other
having
things to do
fun,
to
I
do it.
bet.
So, yeah, he seems to be.
He's in hog heaven, as they say. Well, good. Well, I know we'll have a lot more to talk about next week when Renee comes back. He's getting all those briefings right now. Our show today brought to you by Blueland. I have in my life, and I think I'm not alone in this, I hope I'm not alone, been trying to get rid of single-use plastics, plastic bags, plastic bottles. I even shave old school now with a metal razor blade that I can take out of the metal handle and put in a little tin. This is something that I found that has really changed our lives at home, and it's called Blueland. And it's an answer to a big problem. Did you know that more than 5 billion, 5 billion with a B, plastic hand soap and cleaning bottles are thrown away every year? And they land in the landfill, and they will never go away. They don't biodegrade. They're not, contrary to what the plastic industry tells you, they're not recyclable, really easily recyclable. And then if that weren't bad enough, when you buy those hand soaps and the cleaning solutions, they're 90% water. So you're shipping all this water all over the country for no good reason. Blueland solves this problem. Stop wasting water. Stop throwing out plastic. Get Blueland's revolutionary refill cleaning system instead. Blueland was founded on the belief that the cleaner planet starts by eliminating plastic waste while creating powerful, effective cleaners for your entire home. This is an example of the Blueland Buy Once, Refill Forever bottle. This one's lightweight because it's a multi-surface cleaner, so you want to have it lightweight. The hand cleaner bottles, which I now have in every sink in the house and every sink here at work too, they're heavy glass because you don't want them to move. So you get them. You're going to keep reusing them. And then Blueland, you can subscribe or just ask for it on demand. Actually, I have them send me a text message that says, we think you're about to be out. Should we send you some more? And I say, yes. This is the little cleaning solution, the multi-surface cleaning solution. It's just a tablet. You fill this up with warm water. You put in the tablet. It dissolves. And now you have a very good multi-surface cleaning solution. They have window cleaners. I use their dishwashing soap. I use their dishwasher soap. I use their washing machine tablets. Their toilet tablets, believe it or not, are so popular they sell out all the time. They are now in stock, so get them. The Blueland toilet tablet cleaner. It's so easy. I love all of this. And instead of shipping around a lot of water and plastic bottles you're just going to throw out, they just ship you the active ingredients. And that's fantastic. I have to say, the only thing you'll have to throw out is your outdated idea that eco-friendly products are more costly and less effective. This saves you money. This saves the world's plastic waste. And you get a great cleaner. And by the way, the scents are fantastic. Now, we use the unscented stuff for the laundry and so forth, so they have a variety. You can do that too. But the hand soap, I always get the scents. Iris agave or pearing lemon or lavender eucalyptus. And they have special scents for different times of the year. At Christmas time, I got, all my hands smelled like gingerbread cookies. And I thought that was kind of fun. From their best-selling Clean Essentials kit to their hand soap duo, to their plastic-free laundry and dishwasher tablets, Blueland has something for every inch of your home. By the way, another thing to try, it's not exactly, to save plastic, although it does save dryer sheets, I guess. They sell wool balls. We bought these 3 wool balls you put in the dryer, eliminates static, dries the clothes faster. So I love these things. Blueland's stunning high-quality forever bottles start at just $10 when you buy a kit. They are meant to be reused forever with money-saving refill tablets. And the tablets start at just $2 because you're just paying for the active ingredients and not everything else. I think this is brilliant. Try Blueland today. You will love it. It's a great housewarming gift, a gift for friends and family. When my daughter got a new apartment, I mentioned this before, I set her up with the whole thing. It's just great. Right now, you get 20% off your first order when you go to Blueland, Blueland, Blueland.com/MacBreak. 20% off your first order of Blueland products. 20% off. That's a good deal. At Blueland.com/MacBreak. Do it for yourself, but do it for the planet too. It's really great. Blueland.com/MacBreak. We thank them so much for their support of MacBreak Weekly. So I don't know if this is going to be a big deal or not. It's not unusual that Apple will announce a new app like Clips, and it just doesn't go anywhere. But I feel like this is something designed for use in the iPad and the Mac that could actually change the way we work, that could be more collaborative. On its surface, Freeform, which is coming later this year, looks like just a shared whiteboard. Big deal. There's tons of those. But you can embed video in it. You can embed web links in it. You can embed documents in it. I don't know. Did the office hours folks think anything of this, or was it just?
I have to admit, we kind of
a throwaway,
glossed over it. I think we just saw it and we're like, okay, we can draw on it. I mean, oops, sorry.
I feel like it's more than a whiteboard. I feel like it's almost like Google Wave. Yeah. Potentially.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's interesting. I think that until we play with it,
right,
it's hard to tell how well it will work.
Yeah. I thought it's significant that it's also an iPad app. So I don't know whether they're just simply trying to beef up macOS and Apple's own built-in apps as a productivity suite as a way to buttress against the power of the Google suite. Or they could have just simply said, just like the Notes app, this is something cool that we can do that someone did a head start on, and we liked it enough to decide that let's just roll it into the OS. This is the sort of beard stroking I do like 3 hours after I've been doing nothing but thinking about the keynote and what the things I thought might happen didn't happen. But it seems as though it's in line with a lot of things that I was perceiving, that it is, if you think about it as a shared space with people, where people come in and exchange things and collaborate. Is this a distant early warning symbol of what we're going to be seeing them do with the AR headset? That given that sharing is now not just simply a feature that they've done to achieve parity for productivity apps, but there is a sharing API. There is a collaborative
the collaboration.
API, so to speak.
Yeah. Okay.
That maybe this is I could imagine this being like the precursor to a framework that basically says that anytime you want to have a shared space where people are coming in and participating virtually and manipulating the same objects, here is the starters of the framework you're going to be using to do that. It's not hard to imagine something like that. I wouldn't make that a prediction of any kind, but given that we're all thinking about AR at the moment, that it's hard not to think about that so soon before the end of the year or January, which is when we're expecting to see hardware.
And I really am, you're watching this very slow, lumbering approach to the AR solution, that it definitely could be part of that. And I think that that's what's Apple's doing, that a lot of companies just don't have the time, to do, and don't have the money to do, is to not be in a rush, to make sure they get it out right, and to build an entire ecosystem around it, so that when you turn it on, it's like, oh, and then we're adding this, and now everything makes sense, And I think that that's a level of. I mean, I think Apple probably started working on this headset 10 years ago. It's not, and it's if it and so I think that it's a very slow, lumbering process to build the entire ecosystem out, not just build it and hope they come.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I hadn't thought about the AR thing. To me, why write something that already exists unless this is going to be a piece to a piece of a larger puzzle? And maybe AR is part of it. Apple did a lot of things about collaboration that I thought was interesting. This reminds me of Notion, which you and I, Mikah, have used. They didn't say whether it's persistent, but I assume it's a persistent space that all the participants can come and go, and it'll live on. So if you're planning a trip to, with somebody, I'd use Notion for that. And then I create a document that Lisa can see with all the information in it that she needs. I just feel like, and Microsoft, by the way, has announced something similar called Loop. And the reason Microsoft's doing it is because they can put components from all of their apps in it, an Excel spreadsheet or a Word document, and much more. There's a developer API. I feel like there is something brewing here in the collaborative space, maybe the VR space. Yeah, imagine if instead of white, you had nothing, and you were wearing this, and these things were floating in your vision. That would be kind of interesting.
Imagine that being a 3D space instead of a 2D space.
Yeah. I don't know. It's just puzzling to me that they would, and you're right, Andy, it might have just somebody had written it and said, oh, yeah, we can release that too. It will come on Mac, iPadOS, and iOS. So that's interesting.
It's just that that was such a recurring theme throughout the presentation, just collaboration everywhere, and not even just as, hey, we wired up this feature so that pages could work with groups. It's like, no, here is an API so that even if a third-party developer wants to make a collaborative app, they don't have to roll their own solution. They can just use our own APIs.
It's good for business.
It stuck out
because it uses messages, it uses FaceTime.
Right,
I mean, it uses all the technologies. So anyway, maybe I'm making more of it than it deserves.
Beard stroking, but that's what that's what we do.
That's our job.
That's what we do for the 24 to 48 hours after keynote.
iOS 16. Any big Mikah? You and Rosemary probably are excited about shortcuts and enhanced shortcut features.
Yeah, Rosemary in particular, obviously. One of the things that they've done in shortcuts is that little remove background thing is a shortcut feature. So you can actually set up a shortcut where you can feed it a bunch of photos and say, take the background out of all of those. And then you get the photos back with just the subject that's at the front. Honestly, it would take us hours to go through all of the different changes.
There was so much. Lock screen was the thing they started with. And that also uses the cutout feature because, for instance, the numbers on the clock are behind your head or behind the Joshua tree or whatever. It's funny because this is a feature that Google had in Android and took out. Is this lock screen, all these widgets, all of this live stuff. But it really also, and some people who analyze the code of iOS 16 see this in the code, supports a feature that is rumored to be coming with the next iPhone, which is an always-on lock screen. So now you might have an always-on display on your phone that has all sorts of information in there. That's kind of interesting.
I've got that on my Pixel. Oh, go ahead.
I'm just going to say, I think we're about to say the same thing. That imagine it basically having a smart display that's just in your pocket all the time. That you don't actually have to wake it. You don't actually have to fire up an app to get the information that you want. Imagine like an Apple Watch complication thing where you can just take out your phone like a pocket watch, check it, then put it back in your pocket.
The way
I really think that's going to be big.
The way the watch makes that work is by slowing down to 1 hertz, like really slowing the display down. The iPhone can't currently do that, but that is thought to be a variable refresh feature of iPhone 14. Go ahead, Mikah.
I was just going to say, well, two things. One, I have been comparing this new lock screen feature to just basically they took what you could do on an Apple Watch and blew it up. And so it's just like having an Apple Watch on your home screen, which is very cool. And now they've combined those technologies. So a developer who designs a widget / complication, those now fall in the same kind of code base. So it's very easy to have them for both the Apple Watch and the iPhone, which again makes more developers more likely to add those complications, those widgets, to be able to access across devices. I think the one thing that I'm curious, I mean, Apple's done a pretty good job on the Apple Watch with having the always-on screen and the battery life being good. But when it comes to the Pixel, I've noticed that it does impact the battery, which makes sense to have an always-on screen. Obviously, if the screen is always on, then there will be some impact to battery. I'm curious what Apple will do and that give and take to try and maintain as much battery life as possible.
The only thing I'll say about that is that the number one thing that affected my battery was Facebook. Like literally, literally.
The worst. Oh yeah.
So I still go on Facebook, from my desktop, but I do not have it on. I don't have that Instagram, anything that is because there's just so much, whatever it's doing, there is so much going on.
What it's doing.
But I'm amazed.
It's constantly telling Meta what you're up to.
Like right now, I get up at, 4 o'clock in the morning, 4:30 in the morning, and I took it off the charger. Like that's the last time it saw charging, and it's now 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and I've used 10% on my phone, and I've been using it on and off all morning. It's so. Anyway, I just think that it may impact the battery, but there's a lot of things that impact the battery on your phone.
Right. And this
Audible is the biggest impact to my battery.
Yeah, because you listen all the time.
I do.
Me too. I love the idea that having widgets that are live. They showed Map, for instance, as you're navigating, you don't have to turn your phone on; it's always there. Right. If you're waiting for a delivery, you can see a timeline, or I could see a lot of stuff happening with this lock screen. It's one of those features that users are going to have to put some work into, like focus, which means 99% of users won't do a thing with it. But for those who really care, you'll have a lot more functionality.
Yeah, I wonder how Apple is going to sort of figure that in with their usual dogma, which is that we are so committed to making sure that our users have a good time with our products that we are not going to allow them to have a bad time with our products. Meaning that if they were able to say that, well, this will cost you 10% of your battery life, but so we're not going to let you even make that choice if you want to make it.
Right. Anything else in iOS that we should talk about? Mail and Safari updated a little bit. Somebody was saying it's the biggest update to Mail ever. I don't know. I don't use Mail. I can't.
I mean, it's nice. It's nice to have stuff that I've had. It's another one of those things where, like being able to basically, if you send an email, but you have like a certain countdown timer to say, actually, please unsend that. Some editing features, that sort of stuff. It's nice. I mean, there's a reason why I don't use the Mail.app as my Mail app, because it's just not as muscular as pretty much anything else out there. So anytime that they give you better features, that's a nice thing. Not to be poo-pooed, but it's definitely you realize that you're like the third guest on the Tonight Show or on the Letterman Show, and Robin Williams is guest number one. You know that you're ready to go on stage at the keynote, but you're probably going to get bumped if you're there to talk about new features in Mail.
Alex, I just remembered something. Yes. So firstly, one of the things is that a lot of the features that we've talked about that are the big ones are multi-platform features.
Yes.
And so we've covered a lot of that stuff.
That's
anyway.
Right.
But one that I actually learned yesterday on my trip down south, but I didn't realize that this was the case. You now can, so you remember iCloud Plus, right? The feature set that gives you the ability to turn on the device tracking protections that are sort of next level. It also gives you the ability to create masked emails where they will generate kind of a fake email for you so that you don't get that spam, or that you can kind of monitor what's ending up selling your information. Well, now right within the settings, when you go into iCloud Plus, you can actually buy domains to set up your own custom. Yes, they're using Cloudflare for this. Cloudflare just became a registrar not too long ago, I think within the past 3 or 4 months. And Apple is doing the management right there. So you can use your Apple account to actually purchase a domain and set up your own private email that does that hide my email setting. So I thought that was a really interesting thing that was very, very buried. But just sort of being able to be right in those settings and make a purchase of a custom domain without having to go, elsewhere was kind of an interesting thing.
Yeah. You've always said, Alex, that Apple should get into financial services, and they snuck a little thing in there that actually puts them into an interesting position with financial services. Apple Pay Later. They're basically financing purchases, and not just for Apple products, but for a lot of people. They said Shopify will be the first company to use this. This is buy now, pay later.
Well, they had to figure out something to do with all that cash. we'll lend it out. I think that I don't know if they're using an external finance, but because they're not charging any interest, I don't know what an external group would want to do with it. So it does feel like they're using their own cash to back it up.
Yeah.
So yeah.
U.S. only and probably forever because of banking regulations around the world and how complicated those are.
It does feel like they just keep getting closer to being a bank.
Yeah. 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 I mean, this is not something consumers can get this from a lot of places. It's not something that people were saying, well, Apple Pay has to have it, but it sure promotes the use of Apple Pay by a lot of merchants who don't have these features, right?
I mean, I think the big thing is for Apple is it's not so much that whether it's available somewhere else. It's just that a lot of Apple users want it to be available inside of their little cocoon.
Right.
Apple doesn't even have to do it as well. It has to do 80% as good as everybody else as long as it's inside the ecosystem and they don't have to think about it. A lot of Apple users will just be like, okay, that's what I want to. Like the Apple Maps, which I now believe are pretty close to on par with Google Maps.
That's what they were saying.
Out,
yeah.
When it came out, it was definitely not as good, but still 60% of iPhone users were using it because when I click on something, it shows up, and so that's part of the issue.
But that is kind of a danger. The more Apple gets into these more traditional sort of banking features, the more that they're putting the goodwill that they've built with their customers at risk. That if people think that, oh well, gosh, I've never done this. Hey, pay nothing now. Wait for a few months. I've never accepted those terms because I know there must be something where once I start payments, if I'm late, there's suddenly like a 50% tariff or 50% fee. The first time that someone says, "Hey, I trust Apple not to screw me over on a credit deal or on a loan deal or on a pay later deal," suddenly they become not the trustworthy place that is not going to steal my information, that is going to treat me well, that's going to treat me fairly, and it becomes, oh, I shouldn't have trusted them at all. I just had a horrible experience with Apple, and I'm never going to recommend them to anybody ever again.
Yeah, but what an opportunity to be the good guy.
True.
Right?
So I'm keen to see, again, if someone can't come up with the money, is it a straight repo and you're fine, or is it, no, you're still on the hook for a $2,000 computer, only now it's a $2,400 computer. Right.
It does say eligibility, it's based on eligibility. It's not, they're not letting anybody do for payments. So there's a little, the fine print. And so my guess is that the rating has to be pretty high, and people with higher ratings are pretty obsessive about paying them.
Right.
So yeah, but people's circumstances do change, as we found out in the past 2 or 3 years, where you're fine. You're fine last year, and you thought, oh well, gosh, I'm buying a new car, a new house, and a new Mac, and suddenly you're living in your car and you can't pay for the new Mac.
At least you have a new Mac. Speaking of living in your,
so you can just a heater for the car.
Yeah, speaking of living in your car, we'll wrap up with this. I thought it was really interesting, and what they talked about with a CarPlay, I thought kind of signaled that they want to build a car. I don't know if I'm wrong about this. They talked about the next generation of CarPlay and showed a screen that, as far as I know, is only available in one high-end auto, the Mercedes EQS, that goes all the way across. And by the way, there's no Mercedes branding or Ford or any other car company. It's all Apple. As if they're telling the car companies, let us design the UI. I thought very interesting.
Yeah, I wonder how much of that is a really rigged sample, because instrumentation.
This is not even rigged. This is a drawing.
No, I know, but I mean that. You're absolutely right. But the thing is, there have been studies based on how many people have died because a switch was put in the wrong place, or because it's the wrong color, or because it looks like it's set but it's not set. This is not something I can change my watch face on my Android watch to something stupid and it doesn't really matter. But if you let someone rearrange their console so that a really, really important piece of data just isn't there when they absolutely need it, that's a really, really bad thing. It's interesting, and also I wonder how many designers. I mean, people, if you thought that Johnny Ive and Apple designers were obsessive, think about the designers of a luxury brand car. Are they going to be happy handing over the user interface design to somebody else?
That's why I think it's really about Project Titan. That's what I really think.
Yeah.
It says this next generation of CarPlay is the ultimate iPhone experience for the car. It provides content for all the driver's screens, all of them, by the way, where your speedometer would be, everything, including the instrument cluster, ensuring a cohesive design experience that's the very best of your car and your iPhone. Vehicle functions like radio and temperature controls are handled right from CarPlay. Personalization options ranging from widgets to selecting a curated gauge cluster design make it unique to the driver. I have to think this is really intended for self-driving cars. I think this is Apple saying, yeah, you see that ugly thing that your car manufacturer is foisting on you? You could have this.
Yeah. And we notice that they're still not, how many editions of watchOS later, they're still not allowing you to create your own watch faces, but they're coming out with their own curated designs on a regular basis. So maybe this is part of that. Yeah. Same philosophy.
We know Apple's working on a car. The only thing I can think of is this is intended for an Apple car.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think that also, I mean, they did say that we're going to start seeing some of these at least in the not too distant future. So, I mean, they're going
to announce in late 2023. They're going to announce which vehicles.
Right.
For instance, I have CarPlay on my Ford Mach-E, which I love, and there are some components from CarPlay showing up on the driver's screen, but most of the driver's screen's owned by Ford. I don't see Ford ever giving that up. I'm sorry.
I think the real danger for the car manufacturers is in each class. Let's if we break up these cars into, let's say, 5 classes. In each class where there's not a lot of difference between the cars, not a lot of differentiating factors, this could be a differentiating factor. I know that I would never buy a car that didn't have CarPlay at this point.
That's why I didn't buy a Tesla.
And I poo-pooed it when it first came out.
Yeah.
But I would never buy one now. And so the issue is that if I had 5 cars in the same class that I was looking at and only one had this new Apple interface, I would buy it. Yeah. The other, and so I think that if they don't have to turn the whole industry, they just have to divide it, and create a real, because it's really hard for cars to differentiate themselves from each other. And so for the ones that don't want to play, you just get the other ones and you beat them with it. Right. So I think that might be more of what Apple is going to try to do at least and move things forward, is just get cut those classes into bits and pieces, and then show enough. And if they show high sales, and when I say high sales, a punch of 1 or 2% is worth billions.
Right.
Just 1 or 2% more.
I think consumers may also say, and Apple kind of hinted at this, I don't trust BMW with my data. I trust Apple with my data. Right. And that's going to be a differentiator as well going down the road.
Well, BMW is still going to get your data. They're just going to let.
Apple's very restrictive. No, Apple's very believing if you're using Apple Automotive.
Are you? Okay. I have trouble believing that a company would sign on for something like that, given how valuable that data is.
Oh, I agree, and that's why Apple wants to put pressure on your car company.
And again, we have to remember that Verizon laughed Apple out of the room when they offered when they said what they wanted for the iPhone, and it was probably the most expensive thing Verizon ever did. So
well, they got their money back. I mean, I'm just saying. Yeah. Well, they're still selling. They still reap the iPhone bonanza. What they lost was I'll prevent this from becoming a total distraction. But they basically gave AT&T the ability to lift themselves into Verizon's orbit as far as share goes.
the thing is that I dumped Verizon for AT&T when the iPhone came out, and I'm still using AT&T, and I spend a lot of money with AT&T. It's the whole family. Anything else. It's,
a
lot of people like that.
I just don't think that CarPlay is going to be doing a whole lot that Android Auto can't match. I'm also skeptical that they're going to be a whole lot of it. It looks great as a solution for luxury cars, but how about the cars that most people are going to be buying, which they're just going to have a very simple center console and maybe dash instrument cluster to fill out. So I am yet to be convinced that this is going to be a trump card for Apple. It's nice, but it's as Leo said, it's a piece of art at this point,
right.
And we're still trying to figure out exactly. It's nice to see that Apple's trying to find ways to monetize all their research on the car. Most of the news that we're getting out of that project is another really critical person decided to bail and start working for another car company, or just to as soon as their stock options paid out, they decided to leave, which is not something that someone who is looking forward to being on a stage, being introduced by Tim Cook and showing off the actual product that is actually shipping. If they see that happening in the next couple of years, they're probably not going to stick around. They like to ship products, so maybe they're looking for ways to monetize all the research they've been doing up to this point.
macOS 10 or 11, is it 13 now? Ventura, macOS 13 Ventura, as all the stuff we just talked about, basically.
Yep.
That's what's really interesting. I mean, honestly, if you want to look at the overall of what we heard yesterday, everything they said really, for the first time ever, kind of applied to all their operating systems to some degree. They're all designed to work together. You know, Stage Manager comes to both iPadOS, I should say, and macOS. The collaborative features and messages go all across the board. Continuity and handoff across the board. We're really seeing this is really a strong ecosystem play from Apple. And
but Leo, you can't forget that Clock is now on macOS.
And now, it was a trade. iPadOS traded weather.
There you go.
Traded for weather. Exactly gave macOS ClockOS and an app to be named later. And I think everybody's very happy.
Next they're going to be demanding graphing calculator. Where does it end, Leo?
Yeah, there are a few apps that we have not yet parted over. I think really a lot of this is just Apple showing off the commonality of the platform now.
Although it is notable that this Ventura does drop a lot of Macs, mostly Intel Macs, but a lot of Macs that people might have bought as early as like 2 years ago, 3 years ago, are not going to be compatible. That doesn't mean that they're dead. That doesn't mean the support is dead, because the version of the OS they're running right now is very, very nice. But I think that some people are going to feel like who bought Macs in like 2019 might feel like their noses got pushed out of joint by this one.
iMacs 2017 and later, iMac Pro 2017 and later, MacBook Air 2018 and later, MacBook Pro 2017 and later. At least they didn't say you have to have an M1. Mac Pro 2019 and later, Mac Studio, Mac Mini 2018 and later.
Next year.
Yeah,
I mean, definitely you don't buy into the Mac OS expecting a lot backwards compatibility.
Right.
I mean, it's still going back 5 years.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
I think that's.
Well, we got pretty excited about handoff for FaceTime coming to the Mac.
Yeah,
I remember Leo.
Big. Only because my mom never answers on the right device, and I have to hang up and say, "Don't answer," and I'm going to call you back now. Answer only on the iPad. But now she'll just be able to swoop it over to the. You also like the fact that they have that quick note feature is now coming to the iPhone as well. It's always been on the iPad and macOS, where you drag up from the right-hand corner. That makes Notes Notes is just getting better and better and better.
Well, and I think that the real challenge is really dealing with the fact for all the other competitors is Apple just keeps tying these ecosystems together, and no one else really has that ecosystem, that can tie all the pieces of hardware and all the different things that you're doing back together. I've kind of wandered off from the AirPods ecosystem. I don't use them as much, in a day-to-day basis, and it's back to Bluetooth.
Yeah,
you're just kind of like, Okay.
They were big on gaming as well. We didn't really mention that at all because I think we're all a little bit skeptical.
Gaming on the desktop,
they were big on that. They showed that very popular Resident Evil Village game that you can play right now on PS5 and Xbox, whichever console, but it's coming to the Mac soon. And then they also showed No Man's Sky on the platform as well. So I think that they're really trying to say, hey. In fact, one of the first sessions available for folks today was all about bringing the support for Unity games to Apple. So they had all sorts of stuff about how in Unity you can add these little plugins that Apple has that will allow you to basically make it a little bit easier for those Unity games to come. And did you know, Leo, that in this next version of macOS, you can create Linux virtual machines?
What?
Mm-hmm. I thought about you when I read that.
Oh, that might be nice. They didn't mention Unity on stage. They mentioned Metal. Alex, is Metal enough to bring AAA gaming to the Mac?
I don't think so. I don't think that's enough. I mean, I think the problem is just not that as much of a culture for that, right, on that side. So I think they have to figure out, who's going to buy it that doesn't already own a console or doesn't already. If you're really into the AAA gaming, you have a big PC or you have a console, and so I think that it's going to take a long time. I think that Apple has to, using Arcade, really has to fund some games that really push the outer envelope of what the hardware can do. That's the advantage that they have, is that they're actually directly funding these games. And so they can actually go, okay, we really want to see you push the outer envelope of that process or build games like that. And I think they could. I think there's a lot of places they could do that. And I think that what would be really interesting is to build something that could be played on the phone and scale to the Mac Pro, and just give you more detail and more things to enjoy. And I don't think anybody's done that that I've seen very well. I mean, there's people who have tried it, but I think that Apple is uniquely capable of doing that.
And we didn't really get to watch OS. We'll maybe save that for next week. But very clear that Apple says now the watch is about health, and a lot of new health features on Watch OS that are going to make it more and more desirable to runners and others.
Sleep
stages. They have med timers and med reminders, and they've just added a huge amount of health features. This is now the health device, and they're just doubling down on that.
If you go to the new features page for the Mac, for the iPad, for the iPhone, it's just lots and lots of variegated topics and different kinds of features and enhancements. You could almost like wear out your finger scrolling down on the Watch OS before you get to the first thing that has nothing to do with health.
Yeah.
So yeah, and that's going to be like alternative watch faces.
All right, let's take a break. Picks of the week still to come as we continue MacBreak Weekly. Thank you, Mikah, for coming in and filling in for Renee Ritchie. It's great to have you on, especially
here.
You already got up early this morning to do iOS Today with Rosemary Orchard, and I'll be back on Thursday for Tech News Weekly. Watch iOS Today if you want a deeper dive, right, into iOS.
Yes, absolutely.
16. Yeah, lots of stuff. And I bet you talked a little bit about HomeKit.
I didn't because there wasn't enough. There wasn't enough discussed.
It's a little bit disappointing, frankly.
Yep.
But that's appropriate because basically that's what home automation is, a little bit disappointing. Alex Lindsay, officehours.global and 090.media, Andy Ihnatko, WGBH Boston. We will have your picks of the week. Prepare. After this word from our sponsor, CashFly. Our show is brought to you by CashFly. Not just a sponsorship, but literally when you download it, when you watch it, you're watching from a CashFly server near you. And that's why I love CashFly. It's our content delivery network, our CDN, with the best throughput, the best global reach, 50 locations around the globe. So whenever you're watching our shows or listening to our shows, you're getting the content from a server close to you geographically. That's why so many people use CashFly, not just for content delivery, but for gaming, and now for ultra-low latency video streaming. With sub-1 second latency, you can go live in hours. Ditch that unreliable WebRTC solution for their WebSocket live video workflow. Scales to millions of users. You'll take amazing encoding, platform. It's well worth taking a look at if you're looking at video streaming. If you're looking at storage, CacheFly now has something called storage optimization, which actually increases your cache hit ratio to 100%. It takes the load off your origin servers, reduces your S3 bills. We've been kind of using this since we started with CacheFly. They very kindly allowed us to store our content on CacheFly servers, which means they're available in the cache instantly, and we no longer have any of that expense of transitioning our content from our origin servers to CacheFly. Just fantastic. You want to take a look at that. They call it SOS, Storage Optimization System. And of course, with CacheFly's elite managed packages, you get VIP treatment, the kind of treatment we get, 24/7 support, response times in less than an hour. In most cases, if there's an issue, they'll know about it, and they'll be working to fix it before your team is even called. CacheFly, lightning fast gaming, faster downloads, zero lag, glitches or outages, mobile content optimization that offers automatic and simple image optimization so your site loads faster on any device. Multi-CDN means redundancy and failover. In fact, CacheFly's had 100% availability over the last 12 months. 100%. They're 10 times faster than traditional methods on 6 continents, 30% faster than other major CDNs with a 98% cache hit ratio. It's CacheFly, CacheFly. Interested? Let me recommend you go to cachefly.com. Best of all, 24/7, 365-day-a-year priority support, so they'll always be there when you need them. Cachefly.com. And if you've got video, if you're streaming, you definitely want to look at their ultra-low latency streaming. CacheFly. Thank you, CacheFly. You're a lifesaver and have been for more than 10 years on our network. Mikah, Sargent, I'm going to let you kick things off, our guest of honor today.
All right. Yeah. I'm talking about an app called Good Day World. And this is an app. Good day. This is a really cool app for folks who are curious about the UI of iOS. So this app was actually created entirely by a person who is a product designer, first and foremost, developer, not so much. Like, that's how he describes himself. So even though he is a product designer and thinks about things in that way, he wanted to talk about the different ways that this that the system works. So the guy's name is Clarko. And it starts out with some fun text and everything that you can read about and talking about should designers actually do coding. But it goes on from there. It shows off a lot of the fun UI features that are available that you might not even know about. So this first little kind of widget or little toolkit that's here is one for different places around Cupertino that are tasty places to eat. So you can swipe between these different places and kind of learn about them if you're in the area. The next one is a little streaming media player that will play music throughout the day, depending on what day it is. So each day it comes up with a new thing. But this is where things get fun. You can learn about different ways to actually do toggles. So essentially, this product designer was trying to see how customizable Swift UI is while also getting to play around with it. So the first thing is I can go through and tap on all of these toggles and play around with them. The toggles to the right have all of these little animations that go along with them. So you can see these customizations that you can do to make your code as customizable as you want and get some idea. And I should also mention there are some haptic feedback things happening as well. Also for these switches, and the product designer is super clever in writing as well. So as you read through these, you kind of have a chuckle as you're learning about them. Different checkboxes. And then my favorite segment is called Keyed Up. And here, I didn't realize there were so many different kinds of keyboards that iOS can serve you depending on what you're doing. And what's cool is you can tap on each of these keyboards and actually bring them up from the bottom. There's the default model, the ASCII capable model, but even ones like the Twitter variant, which you can see in the bottom right, there's the @ sign and the octothorpe or the pound sign, depending on how you choose to describe it. I guess also the hashtag is another way. And then there's versions like the email address form. So whenever you tap into an email form, this is the keyboard that pops up, the URL keyboard form, and so on and so forth. And then this section, which talks about autocorrect, there's this part here where you're meant to type in the text below that says the 5 boxing wizards jump quickly, right? And obviously I'm not doing a very good job typing. That has autocorrect built in, but the one underneath is without autocorrect, and you're meant to type it in and see kind of how hard it can be to actually type that out. And then it goes on to all caps typing with each word capitalized, and then even one that has the SpongeBob case, which is where there are ones that are up and down, but that one is not actually built into the system. The developer is continuously updating these so that you can check out the other discoveries that they've made as they are playing around in the system. And I just think it's a really delightful little app that is kind of a quick look at some of the built-in features of SwiftUI. And also the developers started building it in playgrounds on an iPad. So I think that's a pretty cool thing as well.
Yeah, a chance to see all the controls and stuff built into SwiftUI. Good day, world. From Clocko. Yeah, nah, LLC. It's free.
Yep, absolutely.
Does he
free,
give you
no
code
ads.
samples, or is it just it's just to look at it?
It's just for looking.
Just to see what those all the
just
design interface design patterns.
Because these are things that you can
iOS.
just drag and drop.
Right.
Essentially, there's not really.
Right. There's
Yeah.
no
So
code.
kind of a fun thing if you're curious about the inner workings and what's possible, just even on the surface of SwiftUI, this is a great app for that.
It's like the Fisher-Price busy box for babies.
It is a
where it has
busy
like
box.
a dial and
Yeah,
buttons
it's a
and-
fidget cube. Yeah.
Andy Ihnatko, pick of the week.
Mine is a kind of a combined pick and tip. I've gradually become convinced that it is okay to not spend a fortune on a monitor arm. The one that I've been using for the past 10 years is an Ergotron, like it's made by a proper company. It costs like hundreds of dollars, and it's but particularly given how much time I'm using with my MacBook connected to an external screen and also connected to an iPad at the same time, I decided that okay, I need a dual arm thing, and I was like, geez, I really want to spend $350 for like the Ergotron, one of those, or the ones that was recommended by Wirecutter. But it's especially tempting given that if you go on Amazon, you will find just like dozens of like kind of no-name monitor arms that cost like $50. So even like the dual arm ones cost like 60 or 70. So I've been tracking prices for a while. I found one that I kind of liked, and when it went on sale for $90, I bought it. It was not specifically recommending this one, but this happens to be the Ergear ERGEAR dual monitor stand. List price $149. Currently it's $110. I bought it at $89. As usual, I was using Camel to track prices and say, nope, that is legitimately a super low price. So I bought it. So I'm using it right now, and I have to say that I found nothing to complain about. It's all metal parts. It's not like it's like all plastic and it's like everything's sagging after one day. The difference between this and my Ergotron is that its setup was definitely more complicated. There was a lot more assembly to be done. I was kind of anticipating that would be like the Ergotron, where you basically snap a few things together, screw it onto my desk, and I'm good. No, it did take a little while. The instructions were okay, but not great, but not hard to follow. The other thing is that I think that if I paid an extra $200 or $300 for this setup, the arms would be a lot more like zero gravity than they actually are. What I like about my Ergotron is that I can truly just hold the bottom of the screen with a few fingers and just tilt and move it exactly where I want it to go, and it stays there. These arms are a little stiffer. They can certainly be adjusted exactly the same way as I do on my $400 arm, but the difference is that I kind of have to use both hands to do it and put it where I want it to go. Then it will stay where it wants to go. It's just it's more difficult, I think, to dial it in. It uses gas cylinders just like the expensive one to decide, like, to offset the weight of whatever it is you've got connected to it. I've got a 24-inch Dell monitor on one. I've got my MacBook Pro on a tray on the other one. And so if I spent more time fiddling with that adjustment to counteract the weight precisely as opposed to roughly, maybe it would be better. But then again, it's not as though I'm always like adjusting these things 100 ways anyway. In this particular application, I'm happy to have saved $200 with a very small amount of inconvenience that I think was worth it. So basically what I'm saying is that if you have been in the same position that I've been in, where you don't have like $300 or $400 to spend on, again, a really good name brand recommended by Wirecutter monitor arm, but you don't want to buy junk that will wake you up in the middle of the night in the other room because you've got $5,000 worth of screens and computers that are just been flung across the room by a broken spring. I think it's a good thing to try. It's a good thing to test. I bought this and I'm very, very happy with it so far.
Nice. That's kind of one of my dreams, to get my monitors up on ARMs. That would be a good thing to do. Yeah. They're not, but
I meant to ask Alex. What was it? You had a Visa mount recommendation for an iPad Pro that I lost.
Yeah.
Vivo.
You say you buy this. It's Vivo. I don't know if I can reach it. There it is. It's kind of in there, and it's on an ARM too. All my monitors are on ARMs. I do something similar to Andy. Is that I have like 5 monitors that are on ARMs, and then I have a Wacom tablet here. That's what I use for my Wacom tablet's connected to it via Visa mount. And I use 2 of these little Vivo holders to grab onto the iPad and grab onto a Wacom tablet. They're all on Huanu, which is another inexpensive set of ARMs, and they make ones with a center pole as well as ones that mount on the base, and they're similarly priced, anywhere from $60 to $120. The higher ones that I've used are the monitors in motion, which are magical. Like, you just grab something and move it and it goes where it wants. The Amazon ones are about $280, and my company, my previous company, Pixelcore, probably bought 20 of them, 30 of them. But these ones are, as Andy said, a little stiffer than the other ones are. They're not quite as magical as placing things, but they're a lot cheaper. These are the ones I bought with my own money.
And especially if your goal is, I want ARMs on all the things, not just on that one special screen that I do most of my work on, which has turned into my goal. I still have this. I still have it on a small table that I use just for podcasting. But as soon as I finish fixing up that corner of the office with the big work table, that's going to be like a 4-screen setup, and that's the difference between 2021 and 2022. That I definitely want multiple iPads on Visa mounts now and on ARMs, because they are that useful.
Alex, what's your pick this week?
So I'm going to thank another person in office hours, Tom Ferguson, and again, with some of the other stuff was suggested by him. This is the Aftershocks, which I just never thought I'd buy. An Aftershocks. It's called OpenComm, and it's got a
wait a minute. It's got a
little boom. It's got a little boom mic on it. So this is bone conducting, which I experimented with bone conducting early on, and I was like, I don't think this is really my thing. The reason I got these is a lot of times we're doing things where we need comms and I need to be able to hear a show. So I need in-ears in my ears, and then I can put these over top like this, and I can take them on and off, and I'm listening to my comms, so I can talk to someone through comms, and and I can pull this down and there I have that on top of it, so I can hear both shows at the same time without trying to mix them together. And so that's the reason I bought it. But what happened is that I got a lot of comments on sorry, I grabbed the wrong side, on how clear the audio is and how good the noise reduction was. And so things that I couldn't do with my AirPods, like wash dishes while I'm talking to one of my producers. I wouldn't do it for a client, but if I'm talking about something, we just want to talk for a little bit, I might want to clean something up or move something around. And before, it was always like, whoa, you're making a lot of noise. That all went away. And so having that as something I can have internal calls with and not have it be problematic for me to move around a little bit was really great. It's pretty clear. It's better. It's not a replacement for in-ears, but it's way better than I expected. And it works really well. And it's comfortable to wear. I often will wear it for hours in a row. It is So
they were a sponsor for a long time, and I've been using Aftershocks ever since for conferences but I didn't know they had a boom mic.
Yeah, the boom mic.
That's
the
awesome.
Boom mic makes a huge difference. Cause it's just closer. Turns out, you cut the distance between the mic and the mouth, and it makes a big difference. So
it's the kind of, because you're not in your ears, you can still do everything. You can still hear everything that's going on, and it's.
I really noticed how much it's much more comfortable. I'm much more aware of my surroundings.
Yeah,
I can have those conversations, and so I was very surprised that I liked it. But it's really great.
This should be the #1 pick for Hollywood agents everywhere.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I mean, really, seriously. Nice, very good.
Yeah.
Alex, I wanted to ask you before we wrap today about John Foster, because he passed away. Good friend of the Pixel Corps. He came up with the name Pixel Corps.
He did. He came up with the name Pixel Corps. So the name, so John Foster was an incredible guy, and he when we were just getting started, and I don't remember. I think we just started talking to each other because we were at user groups together, and he would sometimes show stuff off, and so he was really integral, especially in the early years of really a lot of the thought process. Like he was the person that I threw ideas against the wall with, and on all the early stuff that now affects Pixel Core, affects office hours, affects, a lot of things, are just thinking through that process. And again, when we were talking about what is this thing that we're creating, he's like, well, it's kind of like Marine Corps. It's got that kind of structure to it, but it's with pixels. And so that was the, and he's like Pixel Core. And so he really came up with that. And so anyway, so he's an incredible guy and had some health issues. And so he did pass last week, and
sad.
Really amazing person.
He hosted, or not hosted, he was a regular on This Week in Media, I think, right? And
he was in the early days. He was definitely one of the regulars, on it, and just knew, he had been in the dot, boom during the 90s, and really just deep into interactive design and building things and just an incredible thinker. And so it was really great to have him as part of some of the early shows, as well as as well as just someone that was just a great friend that was able to help me synthesize a lot of ideas.
Yeah, and part of our early Mac breaks as well. Yeah, I remember John well. Yeah. Well, sorry to lose another great guy, but we'll miss him. Thank you.
A reminder just to stay in touch with folks.
Yeah, that's right.
I realized I hadn't seen him in a couple of years.
Yeah,
because
me too.
All the stuff.
Yeah,
and just and then when I found out, I was surprised. So
because he was young. All right, thank you, Alex. Thank you, Andy. Thank you, Renee. No, thank you, Mikah.
Hold on, let me see. Sorry,
it's not Renee.
Now I'm Renee.
Mikah will be back day after tomorrow for Tech News Weekly. I imagine you'll be doing a little more Apple stuff. And, of course, next Tuesday, you got to watch iOS Today with Rosemary Orchard. That's a great show. You two are fantastic.
And us on Saturday.
Oh, yeah, I forgot. He also joins me on the Tech Guy every Saturday. He's going to solo while I'm on the TWiT cruise. Ooh. July 16th and 23rd, he's going to be on the host. He's going to be the Tech Guy. So we're slapping him around, getting him ready for his appearance. It's going to be fun. I can't wait.
Should be fun.
Yeah, I'm leaving it in good hands. Very good hands. Thank you, Andy Ihnatko. When are you going to be on GBH, your radio show?
I'm off GBH this week, but I'm on WGN Radio in Chicago on Thursday, 9:45 a.m. locally, talking about WWDC and other sundry topics.
WGN, great station.
WGNradio.com to stream it live or later.
What is it? Somebody's show or just with the news people?
It is. Oh, I can't remember because I do the morning show like every couple of months off and on.
Yeah.
But I'm afraid. But 9:45 a.m. on Chicago time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, they're great to work with.
And, of course, Alex Lindsay, his business, his day job, 090.media, if you want to hire him to consult or to support your stream or any of your big events, this is a great, boy, you couldn't get better than this. And officehours.global is all day, all night. But the mornings are where you do the special stuff. What's coming up tomorrow morning?
This week is all WWDC. So we're
nice.
So we talked. We had, of course, yesterday morning we talked about what we wanted to see. Then we did the kind of the Mystery Science Theater version of the show when the show was going on. And then in the evening, we, of course, talked about it some more. And then this morning, we talked with developers talking about audio and video and what WWDC affects there. Tomorrow, we'll talk about 3D and AR. And Thursday, we'll kind of have a catch-all of the things that people saw. And then Friday, we'll actually talk about what happened. Like, did we like what we did? So we have this odd thing where we look at things on the outside, then we look on the inside. Like, how did that coverage work? And we just finished NAMM, which is the big audio show last weekend, where we covered it for 3 hours each day and wandered around and asked and did some great interviews. And then we cover Cinegear this Saturday, which is another big show in LA. And then I'm speaking at InfoComm remotely tomorrow. So
wow.
It's a busy week. Yeah.
Officehours.global. You can participate. It's a Zoom call, or you can watch it after the fact. Does anybody know? Do you know, Mikah? Is Serenity going to do her WWDC wrap-ups? She did do those.
Yeah, those kicked off yesterday night.
I was trying to find it. Where is it?
So I saw it in the developer app, and I don't know if she posted it herself on Twitter. That might have been why you didn't see it. But in the developer app, it was the last thing posted.
Good, because that was a highlight last year. She does it as a memoji.
Yeah, it's really fun.
No hair, no makeup. Perfect setup.
It's easy. I've been tempted to do that myself. Awesome. All right. So if you follow her on Twitter, SETTERN, Serenity Caldwell's Twitter account, you'll be able to see the links to her wrap-ups, which she last year did every day, and I imagine that's what she's going to do this year as well, which is great. Thank you, everybody. We do MacBreak Weekly of a Tuesday morning around 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern, 1800 UTC. You can tune in and watch us live on the stream at live.twit.tv. There's actually audio and video there. If you're watching live, chat live at irc.twit.tv. You can also, if you're a Club Twit member, join us in the Discord. That is a great place to go. Club Twit, let me give you a little plug to Club Twit because it helps us out a lot as you know, we face the winds of change here in the podcast industry. $7 a month gets you ad-free versions of all the shows. We figure you're paying us, you don't need ads. So get ad-free versions of all the shows. You also get access to the Discord, which is a really great community. We've got all sorts of things coming up, including Stacy's Book Club. I'm going to be participating in that because I'm reading the book and I love it. Stacy's Book Club is the 16th, and it is at 9 a.m. Pacific, and it's going to be Neil Stephenson's Termination Shock. There will be a fireside chat with all of our members July 7th, and then Alex is going to do a fireside chat, or an Ask Me Anything anyway, July 14th. Some of the events going on in our Discord. You also get the Twit Plus feed, which gives you a lot of stuff that doesn't make it into the podcasts, the cutting room floor things, bits and pieces, plus shows that we don't put out as regular podcasts, like the Untitled Linux Show, the Giz Fizz. That's how This Week in Space started. Of course, once we had kind of got it down and perfected, we released it as a podcast. That's another thing the club lets us do. Your dollars help us launch new shows. In fact, you're going to be happy to hear about a new show that's coming. We've been working on it pretty soon to first the club and then for public consumption. If you want to know more about Club Twit, twit.tv/ClubTwit. I should also mention that if you just wanted MacBreak Weekly without ads, we sell that on iTunes as well, $2.99 a month. In fact, all the shows, there's ad-free versions. If you just want one show for $2.99 a month, I think we're doing it on Spotify as well. They offer that as well. So $2.99 for a single show if you only listen to one show. If you listen to more than one show, it makes sense probably to join Club Twit and get them all. Not Spotify. Thank you, Patrick. I'm not sure why not. Yep. They have that feature, Ben. I think we were talking about it, but you know, I know I'm not keeping up on what's going on. Obviously. Twit.tv/ClubTwit. Thanks for joining us, everybody. Back to work because break time is over. Bye-bye.
If you are looking for a midweek update on the week's tech news, I got to tell you, you got to check out Tech News Weekly. See, it's all kind of built in there with the title. You get to learn about the news in tech that matters. Every Thursday, Jason Howell and I talk to the people making and breaking the tech news, get their insights and their interesting stories. It's a great show to check out. twit.tv/TNW.